the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? First, of course, we want to shout out to the replay gang. I'm sorry that you missed the live party because we're about to have a good one, but you will still enjoy what you're about to watch. But don't miss the live parties. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be right here. And sometimes whenever I feel like it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, notifications, all of that good stuff. Let's fucking party. Damn it. I curse again in the first few minutes. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the stream, mysickshirt.com. You can get whatever floats your boat. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at mysickshirt.com. All right. So, tonight, I am very interested in what you guys are going to think of these clips. So, Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire was on Timcast IRL last night. So we're not going to sit through the whole, we're not going to sit through the whole thing. We're just going to watch some clips and then go to the members only segment behind that paywall, except for you guys. And there's just a lot here. There's a lot here that is very relevant to the types of things that we talk about on this channel. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And the one thing that I want you guys to keep in mind as we're watching this is what is really the major difference between Republican politics and libertarian politics. Obviously, we know what those words mean, but when it comes to how that plays out in society, that is what I want you guys to be paying attention to. So you guys know how StreamYard's sound can not come through sometimes. So if you cannot hear the video, please let me know. Without further ado, let's do it.
So I got a hard segue to rolling.
Oh, got a shout out to Luke, the early gang, the lone early gang. What is good, brother? Welcome. Glad to see you. Did you watch this episode or listen to it?
Stone. Trump's major announcement was a scammy superhero-themed NFT collection. For $99, you can now own a digitally generated image of the former president cosplaying as an astronaut, fighter pilot, sheriff, or red carpet celebrity.
$100 for a Trump NFT. He talked earlier this week about how he had a big announcement coming, huge. And this is it.
I think it's hilarious. His video release was really funny. He goes, hopefully, I'm your favorite president, greater than Lincoln, greater than Washington. And if you buy an NFT, you enter into a sweepstakes for a chance to win a bunch of great prizes like dinner with me. I don't know if it's a great prize, but maybe. But it's what we got. Yeah. But I think it was funny that he's like, I'm better than Lincoln and Washington, and eating dinner with me might not be a good prize. So look, he's a funny guy. I think what was cringe about this was that people.
So we got Michael Knowles over here. They just basically did the introductions to the show and everything, and then we're diving in. So they've already gone through. If you're not familiar, we have where are we? We have Luke Rudkowski from We Are Change, Michael Knowles, Daily Wire, Tim and Ian of Timcast, and Serge, the producers. So you don't really need to worry about him, but that's who we're dealing with.
People thought he was going to endorse someone for RNC chair. He was going to announce a VP. He was going to put forth a major policy proposal. But instead, he's selling NFTs right around the time FTX collapses.
Oh yeah, we are definitely going to get to that. That was one of the most interesting parts of the show for sure. Hey, we got Douglas Edwards in the building. What is good? You said you want a Trump NFT for sure. Well, your dreams have come true. You can get your very own. The thumbnail for this was a picture of an NFT that he is selling. So, congrats to you. Welcome.
And what, 6 months after NFTs became worthless? Yeah. Sorry, dude.
How many did you buy?
Oh, 7. No, I bought none. I'm not gonna buy.
I'm trying so hard because I still really like the guy, best president of my lifetime. But I'm trying really hard to spin it in my head. I'm like, how can I convince myself this was a good announcement? And I can't do it, But the thing that his announcement did demonstrate is something that I have said to Trump's critics for years, which is they say he's an egomaniac narcissist, and I say, yeah, he has his name on buildings. but he has a kind of humility. Like, for instance, he had this comment when he was president. He said, someone accused him of drinking a beer. He said, "I've never drunk a beer. Okay, I'm probably the only president who can say I've never drunk a beer. It's the only good thing you can say about me." And it was an expression of humility. It was a self-effacing thing, as he is saying here. You know, when he boasts about everything, he's talking like a New Yorker, but he's usually joking.
So right off the rip, I'm definitely in agreement with that. I think that as big of an ego that Trump has, there's a lot. Wow, that made that worse. There's a lot of things that he will be self-deprecating and not humble, certainly not humble, but just aware, unlike a lot of other politicians, namely Brandon. Come on, we're gonna do this tonight.
I laughed so hard when he was like, maybe it's not a good prize. I don't know. I'm like, that was masterfully done. He's really good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting a lot of pushback, especially from a lot of his supporters today.
Oh, I
He
agree.
did tweet, America needs a superhero. Big announcement tomorrow. Here's my Pokemon card. Buy them. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And
Look at this. Look at this.
Oh yeah, this is a good video.
Look at. He's shooting laser eyes.
Infomercial. Hello, everyone. This is Donald Trump. Hopefully, your favorite president of all time, better than Lincoln, better than Washington, with an important announcement to make. I'm doing my first official Donald J. Trump NFT collection right here and right now. They're called Trump Digital Trading Cards. These cards feature some of the really incredible artwork pertaining to my life and my career. It's very exciting. You can collect your Trump digital cards just like a baseball card or other collectibles.
That's hilarious. It's called what is it? Trump. What did he call it? Something Trump something cards, but it was TD. And if he could have made it S, get your TDS straight from me. That would have been awesome.
Here's one of the best parts. Each card comes with an automatic chance to win amazing prizes like dinner with me. I don't know if that's an amazing prize, but it's what we have. Or golf with you, your friends at one of my beautiful golf courses.
Yeah, the prizes actually are great. Like having a cocktail party with your friends at Mar-a-Lago. It's not a bad prize. I mean, that sounds really.
If one of you gets an NFT from Trump and you win, and I'm invited when this shit blows up. You know what I'm saying? Doug says, as much as I love Trump, I'm not sure I can get on board with the greater than Lincoln or Washington, but that's hilarious. Well, exactly. That's the point. He doesn't think he's a better president than, well, he may genuinely think that he was a better president, but he understands that, like, the only reason he would say that is not because he's trying to convince you that he is in fact better than Lincoln or Washington. He's pointing out the fact that he's being facetious. And he's pointing out the fact that, like, obviously I'm not that great, but hey, aren't I great? That's the character, the brand, that type of thing. And that's exactly what they are saying they appreciate. And somebody like me, who very early on was a never Trumper, I couldn't see through that. I automatically, what? He thinks he's better? I was like, no, he doesn't.
Be fun. Dinner with Trump would be extremely interesting, even if you don't like the guy. And playing golf with him, that sounds fun.
About $100 game.
Facts. You know what we were just talking about with the Kanye thing is that they had dinner with Trump, and I would have loved to hear about that. It doesn't matter what you think of the person; that is a historical figure.
Gambling chip to hope you win a chance to hang out. It's like not in this economy. No.
I think the whole thing was a mistake.
They should be 99 cents each, and he could sell 100 million of them, or 10 million, or 50 million. Why?
Ian just rolled a 20. Ian just rolled a 20. If he sold them for 99 cents, I would buy one. Why not? Ian's on point. Ian is on point. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that.
Why do you gotta do bump stock Donnie like that, Tim? I thought you liked him.
Bump stock Donnie?
Yeah, why you gotta do him like that?
I like the Abraham Accords. I like trying to negotiate peace with North Korea. I like setting timelines for withdrawal from the Middle East. I don't like him for a whole lot of reasons.
There's a tweet going around right now, allegedly from Baked Alaska, saying, quote, "I can't believe I'm going to jail for an NFT salesman." And this does bring some interesting comments to where Trump's attention is. He's not on Twitter. He's not in the national discourse. He's not making a lot of strong stances on a lot of the important things happening right now. He's selling $99 NFTs.
Now, here's the problem. Almost immediately right after, we have this story. Shatter the left-wing censorship regime. Trump announces 2024 free speech policy.
Ooh.
Quote, a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, and activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. This was a very somber and serious statement that came out like right around the time as this NFT announcement. This should have been the major announcement. And people have been like, wow, Trump's getting serious.
Well, what's the announcement? He's promising he's going to do something when he becomes president of the United States. That doesn't really change it. It's a politician making promises. It doesn't really change anything.
Yeah. But
I mean, it certainly doesn't help that the whole FTX scandal just happened, and now Trump is getting into the crypto space. Like, ugh, bad timing. Bad timing. So I'm glad you had an open mind to actually change your mind. Many people today are way too hell-bent on change. Absolutely. That is one of that aspect in and of itself is something that really helped me see that I need to take a step back and open my mind because of the fact that people got so tribalistic. And not just that they got so tribalistic, but that it happened so quickly. It happened so quickly. And, you know, I remember at this time, you know, 2014, 2015, 2016, that I'm still heavily in my atheist space, talking about that more than politics itself. And I'm seeing the same skeptic, reason-minded people falling for typical mainstream BS. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? We're supposed to be better than that. But hey, Cook says, sell them for the price of a MAGA hat and offer discounts on all future Trump merch. That would be a good idea. That would be a great idea. Because not only does that give value to the coin itself, but it increases the value of the other merch. That's a good one. That's a good one, Luke.
But the point is, Donald Trump has an announcement to make. Yeah. And at the very least, it would have been of political nature, not selling NFTs.
You know, I'm all for the fun, frivolity, silliness. I mean, I like that, but that has to be the cherry on top of the sundae of really doing something and talking about issues that people care about. I mean, to your point, look, he's not in office right now, so he can't really do anything. And he's not even on Twitter, so he can't talk that much. But I look and I think in Trump 2015, when also he was just talking, right? He was just a candidate. But Trump 2015, he comes down that escalator. He says what no other Republican will say, which is that this immigration thing is horrible and they're sending rapists and drug dealers across, and we got to do something. When he said, you remember Hillary Clinton's slogan was, "I'm with her." And Trump said, that's a BS slogan. I'm with you. He switched the subject and he said,
I forgot about that. I'm with you. Yeah, I remember that. Or no, I don't remember. I remember that was a thing. But yeah, I was so far gone when all of that was happening. I was just like, okay, Bernie. And then they screwed over Bernie. I was like, well, I guess I got to vote for Hillary now. And as you guys know, despite being tried for a number of years, the most shameful thing I've ever done is cast a vote for Hillary Rodham Clinton. Cook said, not only the value, it keeps Trump's influence spread around and mentioned every day because you literally see his stuff everywhere. Brilliant.
I'm with you. And you really felt like this guy's talking about things that actually matter to me. NAFTA. When was the last Republican to challenge NAFTA ever? You know, Buchanan, I guess. And now you all we're seeing is the frivolity. All we're seeing is the tee-hee-hee, you know, here's, and I just think, okay, it's funny. But, you know, come on, give me something.
I think Knowles makes a good point there about how in 2016, the edginess, so to speak, was the meat of the meal. Whereas since then, because we've all been fed that meal, now everybody knows, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the level of vitriol coming from either and every side got so much higher that now everybody is you know, remember when we were talking about acting presidential? That's gone. That's gone. Especially when it wasn't just replaced with somebody who can speak English properly. But this time around, if trying to be the funny guy and the edgelord and all of that, there's number one, there's other people out there who are, you know, America first, have a better track record, so on and so forth. And it's not enough to be the meal anymore. That's a trick you can pull out once. And now we know we watch them. So like those of you, us, I don't really know where to put myself, but people who like Trump know that that's what he can offer. But now running again, he needs to show precisely what he didn't show the first time around. We know that he can be the jokester. We know he can be the edgelord. We know he can be the bull in China shop. But can he actually be a good leader?
In the statement, he said, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech mis or disinformation. I'll begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who is engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, et cetera, et cetera. It's topical. It's playing to what's going on with Elon and Twitter. If this was his major announcement, it would have played very well. If he came out and said, what we have recently discovered in several lawsuits, as well as leaked information from big social networks, that the government had been colluding, as president, I will end this. People will be like, wow, you know what? Elon Musk Twitter files just came out. Then Donald Trump says, I'm paying attention. I know what is worrying you, and I will address it. What did it be? Yeah. It is big in a sense. It's just being overshadowed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. That was perfectly said.
By his weird late night infomercial, NFT thing.
It could be he released the NFTs and then the management's like, oh my God, this is backfiring. This is not selling. Quick, make a statement. What are you going to do with president? I'm going to do this. I promise this. Politicians make promises all the time. They rarely ever keep them, especially if they're campaigning. How do you know a politician's lying? They're campaigning. That's when you know they're lying.
Mouth is moving.
No, he kept more than most.
Mouth is moving.
He didn't keep all of it. Well,
he kept a lot. But previously, before he became president of the United States, he promised to audit the Federal Reserve. He promised to investigate 9/11. He promised to look into Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. I mean, he was talking about a lot of big things. Again, didn't really kind of address them when he was president,
and things like that, because I wasn't, sorry to keep bringing it back to my experience specifically, but I think it speaks to the larger cultural sentiment that when Trump didn't deliver on his promises, people like me who at the time were never Trump and frankly brainwashed were like unable to see that that's what politicians do. Now, I'd like to pat myself on the back a little bit by coming out of that relatively early. But I was definitely guilty. He said he's going to do this. He did this in business. He did that. It's like, okay, are you even looking at other people to see if how do you know they're not worse? And now with Epstein and all that, we definitely know that people who still hold office are way worse human beings. And I mean, yeah, it created a compartmentalization that it doesn't matter that all politicians act like politicians. It's just, well, this is the guy that we're focusing on, so we don't care about all that. When of course, in the context of a campaign and an election, you have to care about everybody else. And that's where the hypocrisy really started in my own personal life, and then what I saw generally.
People don't want to hear this. People want to hear, how is he going to win Pennsylvania? How is he going to win Arizona? Because right now, there's no political roadmap for him winning. How?
Oh, you'd have to talk about graphene. The only way.
No, I'm talking about ballot.
Only way.
I'm talking about ballot harvesting.
Hold on there a minute. I think he ends on to something. If Donald Trump comes out and says, we don't need your vote, as long as we advocate graphene, we're going to get every vote anyway.
We're building
everyone drinks, he said it.
So Ian's rolled a 20 and Ian's rolled a 1.
Nation on Earth. We're going to lead the 21st century with the new material, metamaterials.
Tim say Civil War
all around him.
No, hold on. Look at our smug faces here. We're all laughing. Yeah. But there is a version of reality where Donald Trump says, forget the politicking, forget the gamesmanship, forget the ballot harvesting. He walks out and says, graphene is a wonder material that will change everything and bring jobs back. And everyone just goes, he's right. 100 million votes, landslide.
We're going to build a space elevator. We're going to lead the world in space exploration. Like, we need him telling us what he wants to create for the species if he has any chance of winning.
So graphene's a metaphor. He needs to talk about his plans to build and help America and to call out those who seek its destruction, like he was doing in 2016.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how. He wasn't really doing too much of that in 2016. What he was really saying is that all of these things are bad, and vote for me, I'll fix it, period. I mean, he had build the wall, he had some ideas, but he didn't really have a very extensive platform. He as a populist, he was about getting people to like his personality and just trust that if we put him in office, he's going to do the right thing. And this time around, again, going back to the idea that he's got to take a slightly different approach, because if he goes, full presidential, then his base is not going to like it. Doug says, we've had corruption in our government on both sides for several decades now, which is why both Democrats and Republicans fought him. Yep. They have their game going. And Trump got in there And again, this is another thing that I didn't realize. They have their game going. And so Trump getting in there, whether you like him as a person, whether you even like his policies or not, he wasn't part of the club. He was, for all intents and purposes, he was one of us. Kind of, not really, almost, basically. But in terms of private sector individuals and government entities, he was one of us. And so Doug is absolutely right that's why he was fought against so hard by both sides. How did that turn out?
Graphene's literal. We're gonna make space elevator tethers out of it.
I think what you're really saying, Ian, no, that's not.
No, you're right.
Literally,
he needs a message about industry, some sort of industry. That's what we need right now is industry. We don't need who's better. We don't need to see who's got the longer,
I'm not
member.
longer graphene.
I'm not going to
longer tether.
I'm not going to defend the NFT thing. There are people who are coming out saying it was a troll. I'm like, dude, get out of here. The dude's selling you stuff.
Nope.
I really.
Yeah. So Klug says, I think people wanted Trump to be a benevolent dictator as opposed to a president, and didn't realize just how dependent the presidency is on other branches to pass anything. And I was one of those people. Again, I want to really stress how little I knew so recently, and I think I know a decent amount now. And I completely understand that I have a lot to learn, but it's stuff like this, being able to point out things like what Klug is saying. It really shows an understanding of the larger picture. 100% correct. I think a lot of people, it's almost an assumption from, actually, maybe not, but it seemed to me at the time that if you were into Trump, you had to be way more into politics because of how strong the media was going against him. I think that makes sense. Because you would have to know why all of this is wrong and that is wrong and that is wrong, which, is where I feel like I'm getting to better and better every day. But certainly back then, I didn't know any better. I was watching the news and I listened to the news. And so I think that was an incorrect assumption about Trump supporters, by and large. I think as many people are, in the weeds and know what's going on either side, most people kind of just don't really know anything. And I think the power and ego that Trump showed convinced people that he would be able to do a lot more than he ever could have. Great comment. You guys are on fire tonight.
Want to vote for Donald Trump. I want there to be a reason to do so. I want to see his narrative arc completed. But it does feel to me that he's finding a way to bow out. That's it.
Yeah, someone mentioned he's like a retirement.
I said homie's retiring. In 2016.
That's got to be a poll. Hold on. Where are we at with this one? Oh, 100%. Oh, we only got one of you, but okay. I'll bring that one back later. So that's an interesting point. Do you think Trump is trying to, let's say, create an exit strategy? Not that he's not trying to run, but do you think that there are things that he's doing or saying that are like Tim saying, giving him an out in case, by, in 6 months, it's not looking good at all, or DeSantis does something great or whatever, that he's not just the loser? What do you guys think?
He's like, effectively calling Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig. He's calling out the machine. He's mocking them openly to their faces. Michael Moore says he was a human Molotov cocktail. It was revenge for all of the establishment games, selling jobs, selling factories, outsourcing, and gutting this country. 2020. I see what he did after he got elected. I don't want to vote for that guy. But then I'm like, the economy's
shit. Sorry.
doing really well pre-COVID. Yeah. He's Abraham Accords. He's got a bunch of peace deals. He's actively trying to work on peace in the Middle East and in North Korea. And I'm like, okay, school choice was a big thing. Banning
stocks?
No, that was bad. Banning the woke stuff from government contracting. I'm like, not perfect. The bump stock ban was very bad. His statements on were very bad. But I said the peace in the Middle East stuff that he's working on, not perfect. I get it. I will take it, especially over Joe Biden. So I voted for him.
Yep.
Now,
imagine if Trump had been reelected, and just in terms of Afghanistan, just imagine that Trump was in charge of that. Now, I could definitely see that, one of Trump's biggest issues was not having the right people around him, specifically the generals. Hey, we got Jeremy Lewis in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, brother. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are just watching some clips from Michael Knowles on Timcast talking about libertarian versus conservative politics, and of course, that Trump NFT. I forgot what I was going to say. Let me back this up.
In the Middle East stuff that he's working on.
Oh yeah, if Trump was able to be the one at the behest of us getting out of Afghanistan, despite the fact that we know that he had generals around him that didn't have his best interest or our best interest at heart. But I agree with Jeremy here, saying that Trump wouldn't have let any of that bullshit going on. And I think it would have been a much smoother transition. It would have been a much stronger show of American cohesiveness and power and you know, all of that good stuff. All of that good stuff. And it just went down the shitter. Now, again, Trump was known for having people around him that shouldn't have been around him. So we have to leave open the possibility that you know, he would have tried to do all this and his generals would have been working against him. But it's hard to really imagine how much worse things could have really gotten. I mean, what is worse than what happened? Leaving hundreds of thousands of weapons and Americans, and crazy.
Not perfect. I get it. I will take it, especially over Joe Biden. So I voted for him. Now, all he's doing is talking about 2020. He's tweeting about it. He's truthing about it nonstop, selling NFTs, and we get only tiny morsels of some kind of policy position. So I'm just like, dude, you had me with the 2020 campaign. I can now see what in 2016 worked. Why is it that now, as we enter 2024, he's giving us his garbage?
Hey, no.
That's something that that's something that Tim was talking about. When was it? The last time we heard from? Oh, when he made that speech, right? When he made that speech. Tim was talking about how, you know, if Trump goes in and he's just talking about, you know, the 2020 election and this happened and that happened and that happened, people don't care. Sorry, Trump. But people have been living lives under the boot of the medical military complex that you, sir, started. Biden definitely should have ended, but neither here nor there. And the message needed to be, which it was, looking forward. And that was something that me personally, as somebody who has vowed never, ever, ever, ever to vote against someone ever again, that speech was that speech was something that made me feel like he is a real player, much more than, you know, I ever thought in the previous election. Not that my thoughts were accurate on that, but just saying, I think that speech did well in the notion of looking to the past versus looking to the future. So Luke says, I think Tim isn't considering that Trump might be leaning more into his press team as opposed to being so raw and unfiltered, both for opinions and policy. I wouldn't say that he's not considering that, only because I've definitely been considering that. And I think that Tim has a better understanding of these things, but you may be correct, because we definitely, you know, with that speech, there was one of two ways that would have really, he could have either gone to fire up the base, or he could have focused on getting the general public. And it seems like he went to the general public, but that doesn't mean that coming out just being the same old Trump wouldn't have worked in its own way. There's a lot going on, and you know, with DeSantis and other candidates, we definitely are going to need more time before we can really have any idea of what's going to happen. But again, you guys are on fire tonight. Jeremy says it's not at all surprising that Biden left all that military equipment and weaponry over there, especially after I cannot talk tonight, guys. Especially after Fast and Furious with the cartels and Obama. It's a leftist pattern. You have to wonder how you mess up that badly. You should never attribute malice to that which could be caused by stupidity or ignorance. But you still have to ask, how did it get that bad? Because it was bad.
He's also telling us to get vaccinated. So remember to do that, folks.
Well, this is, Ron DeSantis is what I know that some people don't like Ron DeSantis, or they used to like Ron DeSantis, but now they don't like Ron DeSantis because Trump is running. And whatever you think about the guy, he is one of the most masterful politicians of our lifetime. And he has found this one issue in particular where he can outflank Trump to the right, and that's on the vaccines. And choosing to impanel that grand jury and choosing to investigate the mRNA vax, I mean, it was an absolute stroke of genius. And I don't know how Trump answers that.
He can't.
Yeah, we didn't talk
Especially
about
when
that.
it came to lockdowns, when it came to COVID, and when it came to Operation Warp Speed, he can't.
So DeSantis just had a panel with Joe Ladapo, his secretary,
The
Surgeon General of Florida.
Surgeon General.
Yeah.
And what was it exactly? Can you explain the panel that they had? Because I saw 10, 20 seconds of it.
So, there are like 5 or 6 things that DeSantis is proposing right now. The most important one, though, is actually impaneling a grand jury to investigate and potentially prosecute the people who lied about these vaccines, from industry to public authority. And so that's a big deal, because you need teeth. I mean, as we're all kind of talking about, it's one thing to make a promise on a campaign trail or to send a tweet, but if you're actually holding people to account for deception and fraud and crimes, those are the kind of results that people want.
Thanks for watching this clip from.
So we got that one there. I see we only have one person, or we got 2 votes in the poll. So hit that if you want to have your opinion taken care of. So with that video, we get a good idea of where these people are thinking about, specifically Trump. So again, the main thing I want to focus on tonight is Republican politics versus Libertarian politics. So again, just keep that in mind as we go forward. So the next clip is 5 Antifa members charged with domestic terror over rioting. Finally.
From the Tim Cat.
Oh.
We got Andy No reports from the Post Millennial. Domestic terror charges for 5 arrested at violent Antifa autonomous zone near Atlanta. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations has found explosive devices and gasoline at the raid. The reason this story is newsworthy is that it actually happened for once.
Yeah.
If the law was being upheld as it's supposed to be, we wouldn't care to talk about another bunch of extremists getting arrested. They're supposed to get arrested.
Right.
Now we're like, wow, look at that. They actually arrested some of them. Here's what I see happening. This is the point I was making just in the previous segment. A society is typically a cohesive one. Everybody kind of agrees on the lines you don't cross. When someone crosses that line, everyone is aghast, and the cops are like, we're going to go in and deal with this. That meant obscenity laws 100 years ago.
Yep.
That meant someone could go on a street corner and yell something nasty, and they'd be like, no, stop this. And everyone agreed, not good. We've now gone so far in the other direction that you actually have people throwing Molotov cocktails, and in these cities, they're like, well, it's their first offense, and look, we're going to lose votes if we actually prosecute these people, so let's let them all out of the prisons. Now, there's no enforcement at all.
Let's not forget that Kamala Harris was, I don't know personally, but through her own name, was raising money to get people out of jail who had been arrested for rioting in the Summer of Love. And now they're just like, let's just not even, we'll arrest you and whatever, but then we'll just let you go.
The American people, conservatives too. Conservatives aren't going to go to cities and demand this stuff. So unless there was an actual ramification for not holding people to account, or I should say, there is no ramification for not holding people to account. So it's just not happening. Mm-hmm. This is the breakdown of the political body or of government or whatever you want to call it.
So this is, I think, I don't remember, I was driving, I listened to the whole thing at 2.4 speed. So I don't know exactly where all of this is. But I think this is where they are going to start talking about the differences on how to solve the issue. I think they all agree that is the issue. But as somebody like Knowles is going to come much more from a Republican GOP type of stance, Tim is going to be more of the right-leaning centrist, whereas Luke is a full-on libertarian anarcho-capitalist.
People are being held to account if, for instance, they prohibit their children from being castrated. People are being held to account if they walk into the Capitol Rotunda with a horn hat on and crack a Coors Light. People are having the book thrown at them for that sort of thing.
Pro-life activists at abortion clinics.
Pro-life activists at abortion clinics, and just even exposing crimes, actual
Been posting about that all week.
illegal, not just immoral activity, which is all that takes place at abortion clinics, but actual illegal activity. And then who's prosecuted? It's the pro-lifers. So the law is being enforced, and more than the law is being enforced against certain people. But you look at, say, the 19th century, early 20th century, and you always hear these horror stories of the Ku Klux Klan getting away with lynchings or terror rides or anything like that. You say, well, they just didn't enforce the law. That was, yeah, right. That is an imperfect expression of how the law is enforced, and you're seeing precisely the same sort of thing here.
It's cultural tolerance. Right now, our culture is completely tolerating Antifa. Conservatives and libertarian types complain about the violence, and then nothing else happens. There is no cost for a law enforcement division of any kind if they do not enforce the law. There is a cost if they do enforce it.
Think about the difference between what we would consider politically motivated behavior on the right versus the left. And I know that's I know that's a very broad statement, but I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that very obviously everything flows in one direction. And if somebody on the left has an offense this high, then they could probably get away with it. But somebody on the right who gets an offense this high, they're getting the full weight of the mob. And not every single time, of course. But speaking generally, I mean, does anybody disagree with that?
When they come out and target Antifa, they can expect more firebombs and more violence. If they don't arrest anybody, what can they expect? Well, there will be some firebombs and violence from these lunatics they want to arrest, but conservatives ain't going to do anything.
Yeah, but you do see the law of nature take over when they firebomb Dwayne Reed, or when they go into Dwayne Reed and mob the store with a flash mob and rob, $1,000 each so they can't get felonies in San Francisco where they made it you're allowed to.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, the new law, relatively new law in San Francisco, and I believe New York City, don't quote me on that, that $900 is the amount that it goes from misdemeanor to felony. So you can go into a store and steal $900 worth of merchandise, and you're just going to get a ticket. You're not even going to get put in cuffs. Just a ticket.
And then Dwayne Reed shuts down. I think it's Dwayne Reed. Don't give me if it's not Dwayne Reed.
I think it was Dwayne Reed. There's also I think Target.
So you see the market is reacting to unchecked violence. It's not maybe it's not even the culture. It's
I mean, shit. If I didn't have morals, there's a whole bunch of things in Target I would love to steal.
The market itself, but that's part of the culture.
The mayor,
but it's like a law of nature.
The mayor, the chief of police, the sheriffs, they suffer no consequence.
No immediate consequence. It's a long-term thing where your city starts to fall apart because business is shut down.
The individual suffers no consequence at all.
Well, only that your environment begins to degrade slowly.
So what? They can move. So these cops who live in San Francisco, they're resigning, they're moving. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. And that is an issue of an individualized society. Yeah. When everyone just says, it's about me and my life, that's what happens. When people put responsibility to the community slightly above themselves, you get someone going out being like, I've got to stop this because old man Jenkins down the street needs this Dwayne Reed for his medication. I can't let someone do this to the community.
But it's not.
I want to play that little clip of what Tim just said again. And I want you, because when it comes back in the member segment, and I don't remember if any of these clips have the religious arguments, but listen to this again. And tell me why this isn't a message that we can spread with you guys as Christians, or you as Christians, and myself as an atheist. Real quick, Jeremy says, yeah, where I had no morals, I'd be... Yeah, I mean, morals are good, but they certainly make life a little less fun. And yes, lack of intelligence and understanding and awareness and all of that stuff is where that comes from. So let's just bring this here.
Who live in San Francisco, they're resigning, they're moving.
So again, remember, I want to keep this in relation to religion.
And then it gets worse and worse and worse. And that is an issue of an individualized society. When everyone just says, it's about me and my life, that's what happens.
An individualized society. So he's talking about an individualized society. Okay.
When people put responsibility to the community.
And so now he's talking about community. So we're talking about the individual versus the community.
Above themselves. You get someone going out being like, I've got to stop this because old man Jenkins down the street needs this Dwayne Reed for his medication. I can't let someone do this to the community.
But it's not why did this happen? Let's
So my question to you specifically Christians, what is not Christian about what Tim just said? What is not Christian about what Tim just said? Despite the fact that he didn't mention God or Jesus or the Bible or divinity or supernaturality, anything like that. What about what Tim just said is not Christian?
Let's break this problem down, because I think it's fair to say that George Soros invested a lot when it came to appointing district attorneys and attorney generals all throughout the United States. You guys agree with that, right?
120 million.
So he
Zero Republicans.
again bought government to impose his will on what he thought was right, and his will is punishing right-wingers but letting Antifa go.
Well,
Right?
for the most part, it's the non-enforcement. George Soros wrote an op-ed about how he wanted DAs who were not going to go after people and were going to give them lighter sentences. That's an inversion. I'm not advocating for harsh authoritarianism. So I actually think cash bail is a problem, but I don't know if we have the solution other than to expand, build more courts, hire more judges. But George Soros basically said, I want people who are in the DA's office who won't prosecute crimes. Well, you got it, and now it's getting worse.
Exactly.
But that's not using the government to do it. That's stripping the government of the ability to stop these people.
No. Because when the government sees a right-winger, when the government sees a political crime, when the government sees a way to punish someone for their political ideas, they do it. That's the government they're after. But when it comes to specifically,
That's why we need a mind meld. You made a point. I'm going to address your point, Luke. You made one point. Let me address it. If there's a left-wing and right-wing activist and they both riot, they should both be arrested.
Right. So that under our general American perspective on law and order, the rules are the rules, the laws are the laws, no matter what you believe or anything else, that should be applied equally.
What's happened now is half is being enforced and politically biased, only one side is being let go. This is the government not enforcing half of it. And actually upscaling against the right.
And by the way, not to be too.
Which is to just clarify what he meant. It's not saying that it is good that Antifa members are being let out and not arrested. It's bad that it's not a bad thing that the government is going after people on the right who are breaking the law. It's just a bad thing that they're not doing what they're supposed to do in that same context as much on the left.
Too harsh, on the libertarian effect on the conservative movement, but a lot of the reason why the libs have become so good, specifically over the last 60 years, at wielding the government.
Semantic obfuscation, am I right? You already know. Doug says, great question. I'm actually not sure what he said. I'm not sure what he said isn't Christian. Now, not suggesting that every individual has to believe what I do. And exactly. So I'm going to star this, and I want to, we'll bring this back later, because I don't think anything that he said was not Christian or anti-Christian or can't fit into a Christian or any religion context. So just keep doing that. Just keep doing that. Why? Leave God out of it. Maybe you believe all of the things that you do. I'm not talking to you specifically, Doug. I'm just saying the general you. Maybe you Republicans who are trying to force God back into politics. Maybe we share the values. And me personally, I can get over the fact that I think that you've came to the right value by the wrong mechanism. Fine, whatever. As long as you have the right ideas, I'm cool with that. But there's many leftists who just will not engage with that. And so it's either find a way to get these values into these people's heads without triggering them, or just completely letting it bifurcate the nation. I don't know. It says volunteer time for crimes should definitely be a much more common penalty. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the prison industrial complex is just a fucking nightmare. Because I do think that the culture largely benefits by religious faith. Does it benefit by religious faith, or does it benefit by enacting the values that you hold because of that faith? That is the crux of the issue. The point is that you don't need the belief, you don't need the faith in order to embody the values. And if you want to believe that, great. You go and do whatever you want to do with your family, your church, all of that. But I have done the homework. I have done the homework. And I cannot use the brain that, according to you, your God gave me. I've tried every single way to maintain that faith. And through completely not my own choice, it has been stripped from me. And for a long time, I wasn't happy about it because I liked feeling like there was a God who was watching over me and so on and so forth. But I don't believe that that's real anymore. So why do I need to? Just because the values happen to align. That's my whole thing, guys. That's my whole thing. Turner says, well, the next question, if society, to the poll question, if society would crumble without religion, well, there's a next one. Without it, what would be the moral driving force in keeping life civil and without upheaval? Human rationality. Exactly what drives our morality today. As I bring up very, 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 very often. Whether you are a Christian, Muslim, whatever. Actually, let's just stick with Christianity because some Muslims really do stick to their dogma. They really do stick to the book. But the faith, the Christian faith, is based on accepting that the Holy Bible is an accurate historical document. And maybe, there's wiggle room with what is a metaphor and what is not, and so on. But at the end of the day, the Bible is an inherent part of Christianity, and I guess more specifically, belief in Jesus Christ. But the point being, you look at the Bible and you don't just take it at face value. Do you eat seafood? Do you wear two different types of cloth at the same time? Do you stone every woman who's been caught for adultery? Well, then you've decided that you don't abide by those things, even though those are Christian values. It's written in the text. But you have somehow come to the conclusion that we're not going to do that, much like everybody else. How did that happen? If God inspired the Bible with omnipotent knowledge of what we are and aren't supposed to do and all of that, then how is it that we're all surviving and all living in a society where things aren't crumbling, even though those of you who are Christians don't even follow the Bible? And I think, this is why I've turned my attention away from the religious right and towards the dogmatic left, because now I believe those people are the ones who are following the wrong thing blindly. But that's the whole point, is that there should be no blind faith. Blind faith leads to this, where we are today. Just one here. Yeah. So good question, though. Good question. All right, let's back this up a second, see where we were.
Against the right.
And by the way, not to be too harsh, on the libertarian effect on the conservative movement, but a lot of the reason why the libs have become so good, specifically over the last 60 years, at wielding the government in a way that it was not very good actually at before. You saw the beginning of it with Woodrow Wilson and FDR, but you still had a lot of conservative political power within the government. A lot of the reason why we're not good at it anymore is because the libertarians convinced the conservatives that wielding political power per se is wrong and immoral. And by doing that, we conceded the entire political field, and now the libs run all the institutions.
But conservatives and Republicans being weak has nothing to do with libertarians. They decided that for themselves. They capitulated power. They're the ones that went along with a lot of this nonsense. They're the ones that are literally just the Democrats of 10 years ago. Let's be honest. Right? They're implementing the same policies. And if there ever is a political party that hasn't been working for the American people that actually screwed them over and gave them failed promises.
You're right.
It's the Republican Party.
What's your opinion on redefining marriage? The Obergefell case and now the law that was passed yesterday, the quote-unquote Respect for Marriage Act, radically redefines a fundamental political institution.
I think
You're
it's,
the
I
libertarian.
think it's a PR stunt in order to try to galvanize the base.
Do you support gay marriage?
I haven't even read the bill. I haven't even.
What about the concept?
I don't believe the government should. I don't think you need permission to marry someone to get a license from the government.
Well, you always have throughout all of human history. So how come now?
People, no, not always. People.
That's a fallacy. Things have always been done this way, so they should be. Doug says, what I love about my personal beliefs in Jesus is that I never think that those who have contrary views or opinions are somehow immoral because of it. Well, you are one of the good ones, my friend. You are one of the good ones.
Made bonds and specific contracts with each other without government sometimes as well.
No, that's not true. Marriage has always had a tie either to
Through
the
religion
state or to the religion,
Yeah.
which was usually established and had a tie to the state.
I'll make a single
And
point.
And so the difference that they're making there is that because it's tied to a religion, it's tied to a body of authority. That it used to be through the church was directly tied to the state, but now that that's not the case, it doesn't make sense for that tie to the state to still exist in terms of the actual concept of that pledge. Cook says Luke is like 10% right, but he's totally wrong about libertarians not being involved in the failures of modern conservatism that exists today. Please elaborate. Please elaborate.
Sometimes religion was more powerful than the state.
And let me
But
address
they're
specifically.
always tied together.
And I'll address specifically, pre-marriage, pre-no-fault divorce was a contract that you could not just break. If you entered into a contract with someone, you had a duty and responsibility. And if you wanted to break it, you had to prove to a court that was just reason to do so.
Right.
So a marriage meant something. The reason you had the government involved wasn't because they give you permission. It was because you were saying to another person, I give my life to you. I expect your life in return.
And it's a public act.
And it's a public act. And if that person then decided, I'm not going to give you equal, like you're giving me your life, I'm not giving you back, you would have, Your Honor, courts, I need this enforced. And they would say marriage counseling, some kind of relationship counseling. Then no fault divorce came in. And now we're in the period where marriage is basically a date. You're dating someone.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm not enough to make a poll about it, but because I kind of feel like I know where you guys would stand. But what do you think about that idea that there was a time very, very recently where, even to, it was, I don't know. My parents are still together, so I was fortunate enough not to really know too much about divorce and that whole life. But I remember a time when if you want to get divorced, like they're talking about, you had to go in front of a judge, and it wasn't guaranteed. And what do you think about that change? I think it's really put a dent in the value of what marriage is, regardless of whether you think marriage is specifically a religious thing that also happens to be tied to the state, or if you have a civil union and you don't care about it even being called marriage and all of that stuff. No fault divorce is a bad thing. If for no other reason, it's like, well, maybe just think about this a little bit more before you do it. These girls nowadays, they don't care about the marriage. They just want the wedding.
Something
There's
happened
no enforcement anymore.
in the 40s, which I think is interesting. The reason why libertarianism is so popular right now is because in the 40s, America became a militant authoritarian country. It used to be a liberal republic, and then in 1949, when they created the liberal economic order, they became a military government, and they did it in secret. They didn't want people to know. Kennedy tried to out him to kill whoever. Someone killed him. And
Who is they?
So
I don't know.
for 70 years, we've been in a military government. It's like if you're like Civilization, they had a revolution of government from liberty. Yeah, and so what's happening is
So before he gets into that, so Kluck says that Luke was 10% right, but he's totally wrong about libertarians not being involved in the failures of modern conservatism. So he goes on to say, it's kind of obvious. Live and let live and non-aggression principles mixing with the status quo traditionalism and focus on prosperity through struggle between people does not mix. Okay, I'm not saying that it mixes. I'm saying, how is it the libertarians' fault that the Republicans are just a speed bump for Democrats? How is it the libertarians' fault that the Republican, the GOP, doesn't stand for anything? It's only very recently that, I mean, you know, gun rights and have always been a big thing with the right, but it's only recently that that's been more thrust out into the mainstream. You know, think about Caitlin Bennett been posting the Liberty Hangout thing. Think about what that in 2016, 2015, 14, somewhere around there, when she graduated and had her a gun. That went viral. Now, that's not a thing that would go viral. So, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying here, then the principles of the libertarian lifestyle, if they're not right, if they're not what's best for society, then where are you at? Do better then. The amalgamation that exists today is completely ineffective and behind on preserving each part. Which amalgamation? Because if you're talking about how libertarian and Republican have kind of gotten mixed, I wouldn't disagree with that. But there's no way that it's the fault of another party that you failed as a Republican. That's not how that works. And Doug is in total agreement. Hey, it seems the ceremony of marriage is what a lot of women want without considering the duty it brings. They just want the party. They want to do it for the gram. And it's sad. It is sad. So Ian's on a roll here. Let's make sure we don't miss anything.
They had a revolution of government from liberty. Yeah, and so what's happening is the anarchists are pushing back. But if you push back too hard, the pendulum goes extreme. You don't want extreme.
That's what statists do.
Right.
Left and right. Left.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So what I'm seeing a lot lately from conservatives who of the Daily Wire ilk, who before were like, well, we're better than them. Look at the lefties. They're doing this, and this, and we're better than them. We're not doing that. But I've seen a lot of more recent, a more recent feeling that like, okay, well, clearly us being better people is not working. So we have to get down in the mud and play in the dirt. And I don't think that is, I just don't agree with that. I think that's cope for your ideas and your messaging are not good enough. The only person that's been popular in the Republicans, but before Trump was Reagan, because nobody did anything. Think about all of the things just in our lifetime, however old you are, in our lifetime. What are major things that the Democrats have gotten passed? Right. Now, what about the Republicans? What have the Republicans really changed about society in your lifetime? Didn't think so.
Back and forth, more government, more government, more government. Listen, I grew up in Poland when there was still communism there, right? The Polish people are adverse to communists and to fascists, to extreme left and extreme right. This is essentially the larger ideas that are quantified in anarchism, in my opinion, because they push back a lot of this nonsense that feeds each other and builds on top of each other. And in Poland specifically, when it came to things like marriage, right? If someone would be divorced, if someone would not take care of their child after birthing a child, they would be looked upon as a scumbag. There would be social pressures on that individual for being a scumbag.
No, it's a very Catholic country.
Well, during communism and during when the Soviet Union had control of Poland, it wasn't mainly the state that was enforcing a lot of these morals. It was the church that had a larger impact on that.
Well, the church was suppressed.
And the church was fighting the state. So,
right.
so
but my point here is when I hear...
Yeah, I'm glad he's summarizing because I'm a little lost.
From our libertarian friends.
Like, I'm understanding what they're saying, but...
That the conservatives are actually the ones who were the Democrats from 10 years ago.
Yup.
Is it not true?
No, it's not true. The libertarians are the ones who are pushing gay marriage, a view so left-wing that Barack Obama didn't even agree with it in 2011. They're the ones pushing drugs. They're the ones pushing open borders. They're the ones pushing all of the breakdown of the family.
Okay, so what was the question that I just asked you the last time I made myself vague? What have the Democrats done versus what have the Republicans done? He just went down off the top of his head. I'm not asking you whether you agree with it or not. I'm asking you, did they get it done? And so going back to Kluk's comment, about how it's the libertarians' fault that conservatism has failed. That is cope. That is cope.
No,
Some are, but I'm not.
Some are, yes.
Those are issues that I have very strong stances against.
I think you unwittingly are pushing those things, but I don't think you intend to push those things.
I disagree because I addressed those problems. Specifically, what was the three that
But I guess the reason I bring it up is if you ask real conservatives, the real tradies around today, what's your view on marriage? They're going to give you the view of marriage that was held from the beginning of human history until 2015. If you ask their views on drug laws or on punishing criminals or on immigration enforcement or any of these things, you're going to get the conservative point of view.
Is that necessarily a good thing? What is the conservative view on drugs? The drug war? Oh, that worked out great. What was the Republicans' response to 9/11? Oh, that worked out great. Get the fuck out of here. Talking yo shit.
And it's going to be the libertarians and the liberals who agree on all of those issues in a very, very radical way.
What?
I think the ideology.
You think that... I'm going to let Luke take it. Because to say that it's known, part of the reason people say shit like this is because it's known that libertarian voters, if they're not voting libertarian, they're most likely going to vote Republican. So for Knowles to say that the libertarian, what did he just say? Libertarians are what? I mean, come on, bro. Come on. What are we doing here?
On punishing criminals or on immigration enforcement or any of these things, you're going to get the conservative point of view. And it's going to be the libertarians and the liberals who agree on all of those issues in a very, very radical way.
So now that I'm hearing it again, so like the last example he used was drugs. And so I do agree, actually, that changed my mind. I was wrong. Oh, man, clip it up. Lutch was wrong. I do agree that libertarians and liberals will agree on drug policy. You have yet to make the case that that's a bad thing. You have yet to make the case that that's a bad thing. Quick says, this is the amalgamation I'm talking about. You can't name something the conservatives have done because they adopted the principles of live and let live when it comes to enforcement for so long. Well, why the fuck did you do that if it wasn't a good idea then? Why are you copying the losers? When was the last time we had a libertarian president? Nobody fucking told y'all to do that. But yeah, sure, go ahead and take up arms and start a civil war and see how much we all love that.
I disagree. I think the ideology is directly opposed to each other. Liberals want more government. Libertarians want less government. But
you know, it's always the same. That's what I'm saying. Because it's
not when the liberals use big government in order to impose their will.
But when the libertarians use this fantastical utopian aversion to government to break down the social order and to break everyone down into individuals who are much more easily collectivized, which is
that's not incorrect. But the fact is that you're not going to find a reasonable person who considers himself an anarchist, an anarcho-capitalist, a libertarian, any serious person that actually thinks that their ideal world is ever going to be practical. The idea is to have a North Star so that we can get as close to that as we possibly can. So this is just a straw man argument from Knowles. Klug says, ask them. I thought you were them. I thought you were them. But I just have to reject that. It's you cannot blame Republicans' failure on anything else except Republicans.
That's something you said brilliant. I don't know where you got this idea that the base unit of society is a duality. It's a communication between two or more people, a family unit. Yeah. One individual born in the woods with no humans is not a human. I mean, technically they're a human. They're not a person.
They're not a society.
Yeah, they don't understand language. They don't understand concepts.
Okay, not a society. I can roll with that one a little better. But they're not a human. What?
Humanity, they don't understand. They're a wild animal if they're born in the woods.
Yeah, right.
Alone. And so you need that second person. And I think to think of society as the duality, we cannot function without the duality because that's what
like the Matrix
keeps you sane. It keeps you humble.
It's the man and the woman.
Yeah.
I don't think that those ideas are mutually exclusive. I don't think that because you can think of your family as one single unit. And I think, did somebody say that? I was listening to Dave Smith and he was talking about families and stuff. So I might be mixing things up, but the individual is the ultimate thing that we want to address with our government. not the collective, not the group. But we want to have trust in humanity itself to create your own individual units, aka families, so that the government doesn't have to. If we're all just out here as individuals, I agree. Then it doesn't lead to a flourishing society because you have to care about other people. But on the other hand, forcing whatever the fuck it is they're trying to force clearly isn't working. I mean, unless you guys disagree.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. The Matrix. You see the fourth Matrix one they made?
I didn't know they went up to 4. I think I've only seen through 3.
I think it's funny because a lot of people said it was going to be like woke or whatever, but the plot of the Matrix is literally that you need a matriarch and a patriarch together to stabilize reality.
And not in a libertarian society, not only will two people keep each other sane and rational, but in a totalitarian society, two people will keep each other from falling victim to the state.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast
All right.
Hang out.
So that one was a lot more relevant to the the main thing that we're talking about, the Republican politics versus libertarian politics. I'm really liking the conversation we're getting into. So let's dive into the next clip. Dave Portnoy says Alex Stein should have been for entering his studio. Yeah, let's just play. Dave Portnoy, obviously of Barstool Sports.
I really want to address this story. We got this tweet from Alex Stein, 99 primetime. He says, it was just a joke, dude. Still
Put a 1 in the chat if you don't know who Alex Stein 99 is.
Presidente, it's not that serious. Let me play for you what David Portnoy said. And there's some nuance to this discussion. But this is Alex Stein and his wife's boyfriend stormed into the Barstool Sports headquarters. Here's what was said.
Wait a minute. Wait, whoa. Did y'all hear that? Let's see what we got here. There you go. Yeah, I mean, they know him in a political context better than I do, so I'm gonna hold my comments. But I don't know. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I don't know if you guys heard that. Maybe I didn't hear that. I just need to.
His wife's boyfriend.
His wife's boyfriend? His wife's boyfriend. Maybe he misspoke. Alex Stein would be married to somebody who has a boyfriend? He must have misspoke. He must have misspoke. It says right here. But Alex Stein and his wife's boyfriend. Hey, we got Trey in the building. What is good? What? Oh, what happened? My ship froze. Welcome, buddy. Welcome. He did say that. It sounds like maybe it's a misspeak, but moving on. Welcome, brother. Glad to see ya. Talking about libertarian versus Republican politics.
Barstool Sports headquarters. Here's what was said.
And fucking slap him in the face. I don't think that guy's been slapped yet, so I'm glad he got slapped. Yeah. You hear people be like, "Oh, they should charge assault."
And again, you guys,
he should have been shot.
You guys know who Alex Stein is, right?
If we had a gun at first, a ski mask and a deranged homeless man trying to barge in, bang, bang.
Yeah,
right.
It's the actor, which is
right.
the craziest part.
Yeah, bang, bang, you're dead. It's all those people who want that will be like, well, if you come into my house, I can shoot you with my gun. All right, well, if you have two lunatics, a guy wearing a ski mask, bang, bang, and hey, fat tablar, bang, sorry, we told you to leave, you wouldn't. They're all like, you leave. No, and he was like pushing them.
Yeah,
the guy's like 900.
So where are they based on?
What a fucking bitch. I'm gonna.
What city are they based on? Is this New York or where are they at?
I think New York City. I think they're right in little New
I'm just going to say first and foremost, Dave, you are wrong because I'm sorry. If you're in New York City, can someone fact check real quick? Then you're wrong. No, if you're in New York City, you don't get to say someone should be shot.
Yeah, headquartered in NYC.
Yeah, if you're doing, but the show, like where they actually
I don't know.
If you're doing a show in a city where you constantly vote for and pay taxes and support the stripping away of your right to even bear arms, you don't get to say someone who entered a public office should be shot. Now, that being said, we here in Western Maryland and West Virginia with Castle Doctrine and active threats against us and armed guards, I will say there's a big difference. If someone stormed, first of all, you got to enter a large property. You have to go past physical barricades saying, do not enter. You are being warned.
All the guests that go on the show make a big deal about like, yo, this is out in the middle of nowhere. I thought I was going to get murdered and whatever. They, because from the airport, they really wanted to be out there.
Will be shot. Then if somebody broke in here, I'd be like, yeah, you'd probably get shot. I don't want you to get shot. I don't think you should be. You probably will be because we're not going to try and figure out your intention when you break in. But to stress, Alex Stein was joking. I'm not a big fan of storming into the podcast office, causing a fight and all that stuff. In a lot of circumstances, yeah, he'd get beaten up, he'd get arrested, all that stuff. But I just want to make sure I can point out, you can't say that when you're in New York City. Sorry.
There's also,
as we're going on, if we could get two more or at least two more votes on the poll, I really want to get as much as we can on that.
a difference in that. How many times have you been swatted? How many times have
15.
people actually? Yeah, I mean, is it really that high?
Yeah.
Oh my god. So it's like
15 times. 15 times. Somebody has swatted either Tim's personal home or tried to, or the podcast studio where people do live and work and spend a lot of time. Dave Portnoy has a well-known congressman or senator or whatever come in and prank him in New York City, where you vote for the gun laws that you do, and talked about how he should be able to shoot him. Okay.
yeah, obviously, that's a different level. I don't think Dave Portnoy's getting swatted all that much. The libs kind of like him. He plays this centrist character, and so it just seems a little over the top. I get that Alex Stein also is a little over the top, but I don't think blowing his brains out is totally proportionate here.
I mean, the thing is, they know who he is. They know, like, if Alex Stein shows up, you're being pranked by a comedian with a comedian guy. Not saying I agree with it, but their office is also open. Like, I don't want to say open to the public, but you can just walk up and enter. It's like a building in a city. And so people are pointing out the fact that he was able to walk in the building, go through the door. There's no obstructions. There's no signs or anything. Well, yeah, guys, you got to get a guard and put up a sign saying, hey, private access only. These things won't happen.
I think that him saying it's a joke is a bit of a cop-out. I've been using the word cop-out a little bit too much lately, but I think it's not a joke. Jokes are words. You tell jokes, you say them. If you're doing something with your actions or something, it's a bit. Maybe it's a bit. Maybe it's an act, but it's not a joke.
And semantics. I mean, if you're saying it was a joke, but it wasn't actually a joke per se, the understood meaning is that you were playing around, you were having fun, you were doing that's all semantics.
I just want to point out too, you said he plays a centrist, but he's like the mirror version of centrism from where we are. Like he's a centrist on all the worst things. So like, he talks about being pro-choice, but it's just because if he knocks a girl up, he doesn't want to deal with it. That's like the worst reason to be pro-choice.
Yeah, that was the argument he was making with Andrew Tate.
Right,
exactly. Andrew Tate's arguing with him against this? What kind of world are we living in? And when you live in New York City and you pay taxes in New York City, you're paying for 15+ minute response times, not for your right to defend yourself. So if you want to defend yourself, obviously you have a right to do that. The question's blurred here. I mean, when someone jumps on your property, what do you do? I mean, the jurisdiction that he's in doesn't allow him to do anything.
It's not even his property. I'm willing to bet, assuming that show was in New York. I don't know where Alex is based on.
Alex Stein was in New York City when he did this.
Okay. So these buildings are multi-leased, right? So you're entering a building owned by someone who's not Barstool. Barstool rents this space. That's why he's able to walk through the halls and go in the elevator, because it's a community-owned thing. Now, you come out to West Virginia, where we got 50 acres of our property wrapped in a big old fence that says, do not enter, we will defend ourselves with legal force. Very, very different circumstance. Plus, you're in New York, bro, you can't have guns. So I don't know what, I think he just wants to be like, he shouldn't have come in here, he should have come in here. And I'm like, to a degree, I would say, yeah, he shouldn't have, but you're in a communal building, he's a prankster, people can just come and go as they please. I agree, it's probably over the top.
Isn't this also
Get over it?
Shooting someone.
And this is a way that New Yorkers talk. I say this as a New Yorker myself. It's
can confirm, not a New Yorker. Jersey's tougher, but neither here nor there.
It's always the hypothetical in the past. Oh, you know what I would have done? You know what I would have done if I had been there and I had seen it? Oh, I would have done it so bad. When it's just business.
He would have sat there like a
Of course.
I think Alex is taunting Dave. He's been taunting him for like a month and a half. And Dave finally, he went into his office and made a loud noise and smell, I'm sure. No, not that Alex smells bad, but you're letting your smell out, your pheromones, bro. And Dave really took the bait. But him saying that you should have been shot, Alex, is a lot of people are going to hear that. And a lot of people are going to think, okay, if a guy comes into my office, maybe I should be shooting them. So that's a very bad thing. This is why you not go Joker on people.
No, look, you just can't.
I mean, Ian's not wrong about that. But I don't really think that is the focus of why this is relevant. we talk extensively about platforms and influencers and how you can't be responsible for the people who follow you any more than just keeping your being conscious about what you say and how you say it. But at the end of the day, anything can be misinterpreted. So that was a weird point. So we got a 1, we got a 20, and we got 2 more 1s from Ian.
Be a New York City liberal guy saying like, I should have. No, you wouldn't. You'd vote to ban guns. Come on.
You know what's weird to me though about this is some conservatives really like Dave Portnoy, and he's not exactly my flavor of conservatism. But where did the bad blood start with Stein and Portnoy?
A month and a half ago on Twitter, I think. Alex, it was real minor to be like, Dave, you smell. I don't know, what were the dumb tweets? I wish Alex was here to tell us.
I don't know. No, it started with.
So before we get too far away, we got 50-50 on the poll. Would you prefer atheists embody Christian values or didn't embody them? Who doesn't want? Yeah, if you said no, I'm very curious on your thinking. Unless you're an atheist, in which case that makes a little bit more sense. But especially if you are a Christian and you wouldn't want people who don't share your faith to behave in a way that you want people in general to behave, make that make sense, please.
Something specific that
really,
yeah,
it was like low key. It wasn't, but Alex really was like, I like this. I want the attention. I want to make a big deal out of it. It's good for me and Dave publicly. I think it was Alex's mindset.
Well, it's a publicity stuff.
No, but look, Alex Stein is a very, very smart guy. I've had him on the show a couple times. He's wild. He's obnoxious, but he's quick. Like he comes up with these one-liners and these jokes. I'm like, the dude knows what he's doing and what
he was on a panel with. I think it was Destiny, Nick Fuentes, maybe a couple other people, and he definitely laid back and waited for his moment. But when he had that moment, he went in. Cook said, I put no because I understand that was Christian. Oh, okay. So, yeah. Yeah, extian means Christian. We got Doc Loco in the building. What is good? What is good? Revelations 9:11. Don't know what that is and don't know why I should care, but glad you are here. We are talking about Republican politics versus libertarian politics.
What he's talking about, he's got a plan. The plan may be crazy, it may be a bit jokerish, but Stein's a smart guy.
And he was like, Dave, I was joking like earlier on, weeks ago. He's like, Dave, I'm joking around. Come on, let's have fun. And Dave was already he was angry at that point. And I haven't seen Dave cool down yet.
How dare
so
you?
What Christy Mayer said, they waltzed right in because your receptionist is dumb and buzzed them in. Is that what happened? Because if that's what happened, then Dave, sorry, you've lost every every argument.
Isn't there also a difference between if a guy busts in to my home at night or something?
I was just about to say something like this, but I was paying attention to the stream or the stream deck, so I'll let him do it.
And yeah, if I can get a gun, I'll start blasting away. But if a guy comes into my office, well, I'll just take my producer Ben Davies and hold him right in front of me, and so he can take all the bullets or anything. But I'm going to go a
Ben Davies. When the pandemic was heating up, there was a viral.
Of course, Doc. We are a party over here, so if you're here, you are part of the show. And I'm glad you're here. So I'd love to hear your opinions on whatever. Well, we'll stop the show and make sure everybody's voice is heard.
Video out of, I think it was Los Angeles County or something, where a gun shop owner said, "Stop getting mad at me that I can't sell you guns. You voted for this. You voted for the wait periods. You voted for permitting. You cannot buy guns. It's your fault." People will show up to gun shops being like, "I'd like to buy a gun." You'd be like, "Okay, fill this form out. Come back in a week." And they'd go, "What? I need a gun now." They'd be like, "Yeah, well, you voted for it or didn't vote at all." So to have these New York City liberals in a state that is a duty to retreat, I'm assuming New York is that way, New Jersey is that way. In New Jersey, if someone breaks into your house, you have to flee your own home.
How crazy is that? I know he's about to say it because he's saying it all the time, but where the fuck am I supposed to go? Where the fuck am I supposed to go? Not that I have a gun, but I got a hammer. Like what? Where do you want me to go? Somebody has broken into my house. Now I'm not only having to figure out what's going on, how to survive, but also where the fuck to go. I'm already home. Doug says, love your channel, IndianJesus. Always looking for ways to help you get more subs. Love that. Thank you, Doug. I really do appreciate that. And you definitely bring your own flavor to the show, which is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated.
To where?
To Florida,
They call it-
Texas, and Tennessee.
They called it, right, exactly. They call it partial castle doctrine. I talked to a lawyer about it because someone tried breaking in, and he was like, if someone breaks in your house and there is any way you can escape, you have to. And I'm like, window, yep, door, yep, jump off the balcony. And he's like, within reason, obviously, but like if you're in your house and someone goes to the front door, you got to go out the back. And I'm like, go where? I go to Dunkin' Donuts and then call the cops. And then I'm just like, and if there are people trapped inside, they're like, well, you know, it's interesting, but
That's a big thing about the semi-castle castle doctrine or whatever it was, and the duty to flee. Like I'm just a dude, but if I have a family, let's just say it's not even some weird circumstance. Let's just say it's me. I have a wife, and we have a 7-year-old daughter who happened to have broken her leg on the playground or whatever. Just something off the top of my head. And somebody breaks into my house. How am I supposed to play that out for me? Play that out for me. I'm with Doc. Like, I mean, take me to court. We don't fight it out in court, but it is what it is. I'm very much looking to get myself either in a position where I can be armed in New Jersey, or probably more likely move to a state where it's going to be much easier to become armed. Kluk says people who can't use guns got to resort to the old reliable knives, which do way more harm, way easier up close. Yep. The numbers in the UK of stabbings and knife injuries are through the roof. I don't know when they ban guns, but it's been going up. Kluk goes on to say, thinking about getting myself a pocket knife because there are crazy people out here. You don't want to let the people know. You want to let them think. Then you ain't nothing. Come at you.
depends on what they're going to argue. And what I was told is that the prosecutors in Jersey, of course, they will argue you did wrong no matter what you did. So that's why I like West Virginia. West Virginia, someone breaks in your house, you defend yourself, the cops say, shouldn't have come to your house.
You get in trouble in New York City for having pepper spray.
Yeah, New York is a duty to retreat.
I mean, I grew up in New York City too. It's not only a retreat; it's a retreat. Pull your pants down, bend over, and take it. Because what else are you going to do other than, of course, be a helpless victim? As criminals, there obviously have guns. Obviously, they have ways of getting guns with clocks and everything. But you're not trusted enough to do that.
Is it because vigilante justice was out of control or something? Why did they make it? Why can't you just stop someone from coming into your house in New York?
I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yep.
Liberals who don't understand guns. That's why. It's who I don't know who is the big lobby behind misinformation when it comes to firearms. It doesn't seem to behoove anybody. There doesn't seem to be an industry that is benefiting from people not being armed. You know, like I don't understand who is pushing this fear mongering of guns as these scary things, as opposed to just a tool that has been around forever. You got a license for that knife? Fuck off, mate.
Well,
because when cops kick your door in, they don't want to be worried about it. Cops don't want to fear that if they serve a bunk warrant or enter the wrong house, they're going to get a shock reprisal. Because criminals are going to have guns anyway.
Didn't Indiana pass a law saying that if a cop wrongly enters your home, you could legally defend yourself?
I think Ohio did too.
I think it was Indiana. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Michael Knowles tweeting about this, celebrating it.
Really?
He was very happy.
Shout out to Michael Knowles. If you're not following Michael Knowles, follow Michael Knowles. Oh, we got Kluk says, fun tip for if you ever head to Texas. You can carry a knife 5.5 inches everywhere with no permit or need to open carry. For bigger blade knives, you just can't carry them to schools and government shit. Well, I think that's a good rule. I think that's how that should work.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
That's amazing.
Me and Malice are both anarchists, just so you understand where we're coming from.
Yeah,
so that can explain the debate we're having, which is great and awesome.
Well, I'll tell you too. I was saying this to Malice. I was saying this to some of my more kind of Ayn Wandy friends because I don't.
Is that? Let me go. I'm still flirting with the volume levels on the stream deck. So if one of the effects is either annoying If I'm using it too much, if it's too loud, let me know, because I don't want to. I want to play with my new toy, but I don't want to make the show worse. But.
I don't like Ayn Rand. I went through a phase when I was a teenager. Really, I hate Ayn Rand. But the more that I live through COVID and post-COVID, the more that I see, I don't know, I'm going to wind up an anarchist. Somehow I'm going to wind up a trad anarchist, I think. Because, now, this is why it's also Dave's fault. If you are still conducting business in New York or LA, that's your fault. You had plenty of time to get out. You get out. Like, there's no reason to stay there.
West Virginia, man.
Forcing your will onto other people isn't cool. Being a statist and authoritarian is not cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is the heart. That is the heart of the argument. Let's listen to Luke drop knowledge bombs one more time.
Or LA. That's your fault. You had plenty of time to get out. You get out. Like, there's no reason to stay there.
West Virginia, man.
Forcing your will onto other people isn't cool. Being a statist and authoritarian is not cool.
Yeah, except for sometimes.
Yeah,
No. Yeah, except for sometimes. That's the problem, is that, yes, when you get to enforce the things that you like, you're all about it. But the way that politics works in America is that you don't get to keep that power. So whatever level of power you have allowed to get what you want, then gets passed to the people who want the complete opposite. So a status quo, unlike the type of status quo that we have now, a more culturally calm and comfortable status quo, is what we should be looking towards. And I just don't see how the Democrats are doing that. I don't see how Republicans are doing that. When it comes to libertarianism, it makes sense to me. And you guys know me. When I go out onto a new idea, my number one thing is trying to prove myself wrong, especially now that I'm coming out on the internet and spewing my fucking ideas. I want to make sure I'm as correct as I can be. So again, especially if you're new here, again, thank you. But I love pushback. I love, if I disagree or you disagree with something that I say, please give us some pushback and let's have a conversation about it. Because this isn't about, this is a party. This is a party. We having fun. But we are also learning not just from the content, but we're learning from each other. Not only me teaching you. I am not some, whatever. I'm just a dude bringing you some stuff. We're all here hanging out. So if you got some pushback, push on.
No.
Keep pooping in your water supply.
Yeah.
See, this is where I differ with also, the anarchist and libertarian friends of the show, is that I look at jurisdiction, right? I've had the libertarians argue no borders. Borders are imaginary, anarchists. Borders are imaginary. And I was like, how do you protect your...
That's not true. Because property rights are a huge part of at least where the Mises Caucus and Dave Smith and where the Libertarian Party is right now. Property rights are a huge part of their platform. And you cannot have property rights without borders. So I have a feeling that the Part of the Problem podcast from well, since you did it for me, if you could and you haven't already done so, please hit the like button. But also, it's the same for if you've been here and we have that many likes. So thank you so much for liking the video. But I'm almost expecting Dave Smith to react to that specific aspect of what Noel said by tomorrow, or excuse me, what Tim said. But the idea, yes, there are libertarians who are completely no borders, no like consent laws and all. That's not what the capital L Libertarian Party is campaigning on right now. So no, Tim, you are wrong.
Family, if you don't set a perimeter to where you're allowed to live peacefully.
Exactly.
Jurisdiction is actually setting a limitation on yourself.
Exactly.
I actually feel that arguing for no borders is an extension of your authority over others.
Right.
When the United States says, this is our southern border, we're not going to go over there. Well, we do anyway, but the idea is, this is my property line. I'm not going to go over by you. This is where I'm going to...
Property rights. You don't hear Republicans talking about property rights. You don't hear Democrats talking about property rights. You hear libertarians talking about property rights.
Do my thing. Please leave me alone. If we said borders don't matter, you're basically saying at any point I can go over by you and do what I need to do.
Exactly.
And also that's...
Exactly. That is what libertarianism is, Tim. You've just described libertarianism. that we don't want to have to, we want to minimize. Where is Luke in all this? We want to minimize the level of authority while maximizing the amount of liberty. Very simple. Hey, we got Mike in the building. What is good? What is good? Mike says, I love to push back, but right now I totally agree. Been a libertarian for about 10 years and I used to be on the conservative right. Awesome. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, I've done a number of shows with Dave Smith specifically, and I'm trying to find ways to talk more about the Mises Caucus specifically, but I don't know much. So maybe you could help me with that. There's somebody who works for the LP in, I want to say, Ohio, that's in the Discord server. Will something or another. Maybe three of us should get together and talk about what we really need to do. Glad to have you, buddy. So Click says property, police, security more broadly, unbiased enforcement of the law, and beginning to restrict the reach of the federal government should be the Republicans' front-running policy. But no, yep, exactly. You are 100% right. And that is why there is no weight to the argument that it's libertarians' fault that Republicans haven't done well. The fact is, Republicans haven't done well because Republicans don't do well. They don't do politics well. How often do we talk about semantic obfuscation from the right? It's a bad thing, but we're playing politics. There's a reason that you don't want to be called a racist. There's a reason you don't want to be called a transphobe. There's a reason. It's because of the messaging. It's the politicking. I wish we could have returned to common sense on borders. You are speaking my language. Here to bring the second, or to resurrect the second coming of common sense. I was going to say I can't just come into your house and eat your food without cost. Yeah, exactly. At the same time, I love the fact that the idea of America is that you can come here and make a better life for yourself, family, and I'm all for it. I agree. I don't see anything that is in the libertarian platform that negates that, and I don't see very much in the Republican platform that really gets to the heart of that. Remember, before Trump, the Republicans were the party of the rich people because it was all about tax cuts and this and that, and that's what the focus was. Now that the culture war has reared its head, well, how does that work? And I will say there is definitely something to be said about dogmatic thoughts being thrust into politics. Both sides are doing it, but the left is just worse. But that doesn't mean that right-wing religious dogma is good. I'm just saying that the left is worse right now. For the time being. Hopefully not for long. Hopefully we can fix it.
It's just an expression of the false anthropology at the heart of anarchism and libertarianism.
You guys are straw manning this. I just want to say for the record here, and it's far more complicated because we could get into details like welfare incentivizing people to move over. We could talk about the weaponization of immigration. And I think the Mises Caucus, especially under Dave Smith, has been addressing this issue in a very smart and correct way, addressing this immigration issue in a more correct way, saying, hey, as long as we have the welfare state, we shouldn't have open immigration.
But if you got rid of the welfare state, then borders should be erased or something.
Well, it depends. It's a complicated argument, and there's many different factors that are multifaceted here. To me, anarchism,
agreed.
It's not an all-end solution to everything. It's never going to be perfect, but I think as humanity, we should always be striving for personal responsibility and for personal freedom and liberty.
And I agree to a great extent.
So before he goes into that, Doug has a great question here. Do you think we should end the welfare state or find a way to stop incentivizing it? 100% I believe the latter. I think we are at a place in our civilization where we should be able to have a safety net. The problem is that becomes people's plan to use that. I think there's so many different situations where it makes sense that, hey, you're down on your luck, this happened, that happened, illness, something, whatever, and you need some help. We all need help. But as Doug is saying, it's so heavily incentivized that people are abusing that. So I don't think we should get rid of it at all. I mean, we definitely need to change it, but I have no issue with paying money into a system that helps my countrymen when they are in need. When they are in need. Great question, Doug. Great question.
My concern is the Communist Party of China exists. They've exerted authoritarian control over their people to the extent where they're welding them into their homes. We can be the anarchists of free trade and all that. And when the Chinese Communist Party comes knocking and says, we'd like to purchase some land in free trade, and we say, sounds good to us, then before we know it, they own 40% of the farmland on the West Coast. And then all of a sudden, they're using that against us, cutting off supply lines or being attacked from within, which means I'd love we're there with, you look at the United States, and Ron Paul made a great point that I love, where he said, in the US, you can
Hey, Ron Paul!
be a socialist. Go buy land, go set up your little socialist commune.
Yep.
Why do you want to force everyone else to do that? We set the boundaries, we set the rules, we agree on those rules, and then we can live in peace and harmony.
We're also discussing these things as though they're opposites, when they're communism and anarchism, when in fact they're two sides of the same coin, because they partake of the same false anthropology, which says
Anarchism and communism are two sides of the same coin. The only way that he can circle that square I don't think he can. Those are completely opposite things. But I've been wrong before. So they are two sides of the same. Authoritarianism and anarchism are two sides of the same coin, according to Michael Knowles. Let's find out why.
Fundamental political institution is the individual, which is not true and has never been true.
So because both the Democrats and the Libertarians happen to focus on the individual versus the collective, which we've already established that the individual doesn't have to mean one person. It can be an individual unit, aka a family. They're the same thing. No. You're talking to each other. I love that. I love when you guys talk to each other. Make friends in the chat.
Political unit is the family. And so people are not born as the Enlightenment, post-Enlightenment.
See, what did he just say? He just strawmanned the libertarian position. He just strawmanned the libertarian position by saying the libertarians and the liberals focus on the individual, whereas Republicans focus on the family. But again, I've just talked about how the individual means a unit. It doesn't necessarily mean an individual human being. It can be an individual family. It can be an individual community. It can be an individual state, so on and so forth. So let's hear him fuck this up one more again.
These things as though they're opposites, when they're communism and anarchism, when in fact they're two sides of the same coin, because they partake of the same false anthropology, which says the fundamental political institution is the individual, which is not true and has never been true. The fundamental political unit is the family. And so people are not born, as the Enlightenment, post-Enlightenment rationalists would have you believe, as individuals with a bunch of rights and entitlements. But primarily, though we do have rights, but we are born not as these atoms floating through space, but into families with duties and obligations. And so your love of your state and your love of your country is an extension of that filial piety, because you have an obligation to respect your father and mother.
I think centralization is a big problem in history. I think decentralization, essentially this is what kind of boils down. But again, we're getting into larger ideologies.
No, but what's a balance of the two? You can't have authoritarianism or pure anarchy. You can't have pure either of the two extremes.
I think right now it's more than fair to say that we are more centralized than ever, and we need more decentralization. And this is what the philosophy of anarchism is pushing, because right now I think it's fair to say that too many people in the central government have too much power over everyone else, and we need to limit that.
And I think when you look at the political compass, the least populated portion of it is the center-left liberal. It's either far left, moderate authoritarian to very authoritarian, and then you have moderate conservative to like libertarian right. Yeah. And then you actually, I would argue, have more authoritarian right-wingers than you actually have center-left liberal libertarian types. It just doesn't exist.
And the center-left lib.
But most people who claim to be are literally not. Most people claim to be our authoritarian left, want speech policing to an extreme degree.
I was just told that that's what I was when I took the test.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, this is unfortunately already happening. And this is why, you remember, those of you who are here who remember Mackenzie used to come and watch and enjoy and listen. This is why I was talking about how maybe temporarily halting immigration, all immigration, might be a good thing because there's just a lot of people and there's not enough for everybody. I mean, physically there is, but we all know that's not how that works. Luke says, basically, the government controls the supply and the perceived legitimacy of fiat currency, something that lords the power over lords the power of the government over the people implicitly through obedience. As where labor, Luke goes on to say, directly benefits your local area, is tangible in its effects, and is often more valuable than currency you would just trade for a service or product that could be made. Well said. Well said. Yeah, I mean, anything. Whenever we talk about the government in control of something, I get very weary. And so Mike brings up the fact that they can privatize welfare. I don't disagree with you. I think the best way for that, though, that we have with the societal infrastructure we have now, though, is through the church. And there's just too much corruption and lack of transparency with money and what churches do with their money because of their tax exempt status. That I even as a libertarian, there are things like I don't think we're ever going to get to a place where we pay zero taxes. It is what it is. So, okay. Now we're in a world where taxes have to be paid. If taxes have to be paid, then something like welfare, in a if it's fixed, as we were talking about before, if it's not so heavily incentivized, that is something that I am willing to put my hard-earned money that I earned back into the country. I'm fine with that. The fact is that now when you bring in the notion of immigration and it's like, okay, well, now you said you were cool helping out. It's like, yeah, I said I was cool helping out my countrymen if they need it, if they're down on their luck, if they're this. Now it's just anybody who's here is, gets all my money and go, not enough. All right, you got to pay more. That I'm not cool with. So I would like to see how that could be privatized without the church. That I would be a lot more in favor of. Or just ending the church's tax-free status. Cook says we already kind of have privatized welfare to a degree, as credit is what most people use to pay for things, even if you have no real money to pay it back. And that's not really welfare though, because I mean, even if you go bankrupt, it's not really. I mean, I hear what you're saying. But I think that's a little sidestepping the point you're making. But I do agree with you. Doug said 100% agree with you on the tax exempt status in the church. We in Christianity could eradicate poverty many times over for most people in the world if they paid taxes. That is very true. That is 100% true. But it also could be a function of society at large, as opposed to just the church, just the religious aspects, to eradicate poverty by spreading welfare. I think that can be something that we choose to do as Americans. Maybe not everybody is going to want to do it, but I think that we can get to a cultural place where, do you guys know the channel Cart Narcs? Guy goes into parking lots at different like Walmart or ShopRite or whatever, and if somebody leaves their cart out, he goes and he's like, "Oh, come on, don't be a lazy bones. Can you put it back?" And some people get really mad about it. And but the point is that is the perfect test of your internal morality. Because aside from Cart Narcs, nobody's going to give you shit if you just put the cart in the next spot, and nobody's going to give you a prize if you put your cart back in the thing where it collects all the cart. But it's the right thing to do. So right now we're in a society where we need a channel like Cartnarks because there are so many people who don't care enough to do what they know is right. But I don't think that is an inherent part of humanity or inherent part of society or anything like that. I think we need to stop looking to the government to fix everything and rebuild from the bottom up, rebuild what we accept. You know, the notion of a taboo, of shame. These things are good in a certain context. You should be shamed if you pay a child. We definitely want to have a culture where we shame that type of behavior. And you know, I mean, obviously it's an extreme example, but that's how people change, because people don't respect the laws. Unfortunately, too many people respect the government and the politicians. They don't respect the laws. Doug said, even if you don't believe in Jesus, there is no example in the Gospels where Jesus took up an offering for himself where he didn't distribute it to others. Oh, okay. I'm not gonna be a stickler and pick at it just because it's religious. I agree with that. Luke said, I'm gonna create my own church one day. And well, you should start it now so that you can get in before you have to pay any taxes. Just start the church of the IndianJesus. I'll get all your taxes back in your pocket.
But this is the point, and I'll get to the next story. The point is, if you are on the libertarian spectrum of the political compass, you still have a degree of authority that you expect to exist, unless you're all the way on the bottom at anarchy.
Listen, we talked about this before on a local small level. I forgot who said this. Someone more smarter than me said this. On a local family level, you should be communist, and then on a community level, you should be socialist, and then on a state level, you should move away further from centralization and call for more decentralization. And I agree, the family unit I think is one of the most important units, but I think we also have to respect the strongest minority of them all, and that's the individual.
I want him to hear this. I want you to hear this again, because that is a perfect little line of how to think about these things. Okay.
Family level, you should be communist, and then on a community level, you should be socialist, and then on a state level, you should move away further from centralization and call for more decentralization. And I agree, the family unit I think is
so. I think it's the family unit.
One of the most important units.
Yeah. So here we go.
I think we also have to respect the strongest minority of them all, and that's the individual. And you can still do that while, of course, prioritizing families, communities, and neighborhoods and individuals coming together to work together without any kind of mafioso central.
All right. Well, I missed it, but you heard it. That at the lowest level, you should be at the family level. You should be a communist, and as you grow, you should be further and further away from that authoritarian view. Because again, the notion of a family as one individual unit can operate properly, for lack of a better term, if there is one dictator, but you can't scale that up. And so if we take the individual unit as the starting point, whether that is an individual person or an individual family, I don't think that changes anything.
Controller government bureaucrat coming in and getting a cut of the money.
No, but the trads love subsidiarity. I mean, that's a principle of put forward by Thomas Aquinas and by conservatives since time immemorial. I think the place we're getting confused is we're pretending that individualism, the anarchists and the communists are opposites when they both accept the same fundamental premise, which I think is a wrong premise, which is that the individual is the primary unit of society.
No, right. Again, but he's just not understanding what individual means in this context. The individual is the primary unit of society. Yes, but an individual can be an individual human, an individual family, an individual whatever. That's why we have representative politics. That is precisely why we have representative politics and not, just mob rule, straight democracy, one person, one vote, and whatever the mob says rules. Like says, I totally agree. There will never be no taxes. My problem is the way they collect taxes. Hence, property tax. They have all the leverage over my payroll tax also. And I'm with Luke. All taxes need to be abolished. But again, this goes back to our idea of having your utopian ideal and understanding that it is, in fact, a utopian ideal, and we will never reach that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have that North Star to try to get as close as you possibly can.
And so the anarchists say it's the individual and it has to remain that way. And the communists say it's the individual and that's why we've got to lump them all together. But it's the conservatives who are offering the only genuine alternative, which says, no, it's actually not about this individualism. It doesn't just come down to the individual. It comes down to something that is more institutional and actually fundamental to your humanity, which is family and community and tradition, and not just the use of your individual unfettered reason to come up with some cockamamie idea. It's why.
Again, such a terrible straw man. This is somebody who has at least taken a sip of the Kool-Aid. You know, he's here to have the conversation. But Luke already said, like, hey, that's not a fair characterization. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I like Michael Knowles. I think he's very intelligent. I think this is a very fruitful conversation. But he hears something and then in one ear, out the other, and just repeating the same words he just said. Mike says, I think Amazon and these big companies would help out more with welfare and get tax breaks. That could be interesting. But they don't get involved because the government is doing the work already. Exactly. And this is where that question of should it be incentivized less or gone completely? I think it should be incentivized less. And maybe that, maybe that's the liberal in me. I told you guys, a 2015 liberal. But it's gone too far. Luke says, taxation, even with representation, doesn't work because people are extremely adaptable and will find a way around paying and still retain their influence through voting, which is why voters were originally only landowners, because they were the only ones with a stake in the game. Well, not the only ones with stake in the game, but it was a better way, not counting the social inequities that allowed some people to own land much easier than others. If you take that out of it, then it's yeah, I guess no. Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, if you own land, now you have a stake in the game. And if you don't, it's not that the political landscape isn't going to affect you, but yeah, more stake in the game. Let's land there.
I think Karl Marx, if he were alive today, would be in the Tea Party or something.
I think that's
I absolutely disagree with that in its total essence. And when we look at essentially what is boiling down to what a lot of these larger parties and ideas, especially when it comes to conservatives and what they're doing, they're essentially just kind of the liberals 10 years from now. When you look at the policies, when you look at them deciding to use force and government against other individuals to impose their ideas, I think at the end of the day, this is the key central role when anarchists and libertarians don't want a central figure, don't want someone telling them what to do. And I think this notion of back and forth, the government is good, they're going to tell us what to do right, they have the ultimate decision making and what is good and bad. I think that pendulum is when it swings back and forth between the left and right is only bringing on more government, more authoritarianism, and I think we need a lot less of that.
But Luke,
right
do you not see the irony of lamenting that the wicked conservative authoritarians want to impose their views and use this power of the state on you, when what you are advocating is you're saying what we need to do, Michael, is we need to get rid of our political order in the United States, we need to get rid of tradition, we need to get rid of orders, we need to get rid of all these things.
Yeah, again, more strawman. Never did he say that. He said that the government should not be enforcing that.
Well, what you are suggesting is a radical upending of our political order, at the very least.
No,
you're not
wrong.
an anarchist. You're
Wrong.
already.
No. It's not fair to put words in my mouth.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying.
I strongly believe in families. I think they should be prioritized, and I think individuals should treat families in a kind of communistic way on the individual basis without any kind of force or government intervening in that. This is why I'm a huge proponent of homeschooling. This is why I'm a huge proponent of moving away from depending on government for daily life.
What if the families are responsibility? What if the families abuse kids?
That's a horrible situation that needs to be mitigated
By the government?
That's a very hard decision. That's one.
That is the same exact argument, Michael Knowles, that you would jump down a liberal's throat for saying, well, what if she got our pay? Doesn't she get an extra portion then? Come on, bro. Come on, bro. You're not better because you simply use shitty tactics to end up at better ideas. You are not better than the woke mob simply because the shit that you're pushing in an authoritarian style happens to align better with me. You are still an authoritarian.
An example that is very hard to deal with. And again, but you're making this very niche kind of argument. But I could say, what about the government and the FBI raping small children and bringing them to small islands?
Let's keep the conversation in line and not go far off. What if?
Shout out to anybody who's like, Tim never shuts up and Tim cuts everybody off. Because we haven't really heard that much from Tim.
The government determines that not vaccinating your kids is abuse. Right. So the challenges that we have, and that point right there is why I say morality is not logical. Morality is amorphous. It's an analog. It's not digital. We say something like, you should.
Guys, if you're, whatever you're doing, focus up. This is a great, I remember this from when I was listening to it. This is a great dichotomy of the same exact issue. Should the government be involved in your medical healthcare, whatever? Perfect.
Shouldn't be allowed to abuse your kids. If a guy is beating his child, we should intervene and stop that. And then someone else says, you're right. And if you're not giving the kid the appropriate medical treatment for their disease, that's abuse. And then you ask the question, which medical treatment? Are we talking about a vegan mom who's not giving her son any meat and because she's determined what's right for her kids, and then we intervene? Or are we talking about, say, a gender transition program where the government says it's abuse if you don't give it to them? There's not a one-for-one answer.
And I agree with that, of course. The only point I'm trying to make is that I find libertarianism and anarchism to be extremely authoritarian, in as much as they seek to impose a political order on me that I think is absurd and that I don't want. I don't want to live in a political order in which I, in a self-government, cannot, through my representatives and through the police force, take a child out of an abusive home.
That's fair, but we already have established that your straw man caricature of what the libertarian position is that, you know, it's complete, legitimately what we would call anarchy. Luke just told you that's a nuanced situation, and we would have to figure out what exactly to do in that type of situation. So Luke says, I don't think all authoritarianism is bad. If you use authority to remove authority and basically self-destruct the potential for power to be misused in the future. That's what I want, to be honest. Unfortunately, there is no such thing that is so permanent as a temporary government measure. So theoretically, I don't disagree with you, but there's no path to implement authoritarianism, remove the authority that you don't like, and then not maintain that level of authoritarianism. This is the pendulum swinging that Luke was just talking about. That you're thinking, I want to come in and make sure all this gender bender bullshit and all the woke stuff, we need to get rid of it. I want to strike it down. Okay. But then what's going to happen? You've established a precedent. You've established a level of power that the government has. And in a couple years, the people you've used it against now have that power. And then what do they do? They escalate. And then now you're like, well, we have these laws to get rid of your bullshit. Now you're you're coming even harder. So when we get back in office, we're going to That is not progress. I'm not talking about being a progressive. I'm talking about actually progressing society. That is not helping. It hasn't helped. And it won't start to help anytime soon. Click goes on to say, not the authority that I don't like. Any and all authority, period. Like the government is gone completely. Certainly not illogical. I don't think that having zero government is desirable. But if that is your goal, then yeah, I agree. I just think there's a lot of issues that would arise from a situation like that, and why I'm not, a complete anarchist.
A libertarian or an anarchist might prefer that, but that's not what I want. So I find it very authoritarian.
I want to back up a little bit. I want to see exactly what you said.
Extremely authoritarian, in as much as they seek to impose a political order on me that I think is absurd and that I don't want. I don't want to live in a political order in which I, in a self-government, cannot, through my representatives and through the police force, take a child out of an abusive home. A libertarian or an anarchist might prefer that, but that's not what I want. So I find it very authoritarian.
But you would rather have a government and support a government and pay taxes to a government that's running international trafficking organizations.
Come on.
No, I want if you make it an argument saying I support, but I
Got him. I don't want to be part of that where people can do. Oh, but you want to be part of this fucking war machine and so on and so on and so on. Come on.
can make the same argument there. I'm not.
No, I never said that.
Here's the ideal. The ideal is if a guy punches a kid in the face, we protect that kid and get it away from that person. If a guy's beating his wife, we get his wife out of there. But then there's a simple challenge. The law says you shall not cause physical harm to your children or your spouse, be it male or female. And then we say that's a fine law. You cannot physically harm. And then someone goes, this woman was giving her kid an all-soy diet with no protein, and he's sickly, anemic, and about to die. We sort of have, do we intervene in that regard? But the mother says, I know what's right for my kid. Then we say, okay, you're right. She's abusing the kid. Then someone says, oh, but.
So Doug, a relevant question here. Is it okay to become authoritarian when it comes to gender reassignment on 6 or 7-year-olds? That is and to clarify, like, should we stop this by force? And this is exactly what they're getting into. So they are smarter than me. So I'm going to back this up a little bit. And you guys keep Doug's question in mind because it's exactly what he was just asking about.
That kid and get it away from that person. If a guy's beating his wife,
national trafficking organizations.
Oh, come on.
I want if you make it an argument saying
I just want to make sure I got the whole thing.
But I can make the same argument there. I'm not.
No, I never said that.
Here's the ideal. The ideal is if a guy punches a kid in the face, we protect that kid and get it away from that person. If a guy's beating his wife, we get his wife out of there.
So those are the by force. Those are situations where we would want the government to step in and use force to stop the will of the guy who's beating the whoever.
And there's a simple challenge. The law says you shall not cause physical harm to your children or your spouse, be it male or female. And then we say that's a fine law. You cannot physically harm. And then someone goes, this woman was giving her kid an all-soy diet with no protein, and he's sickly, anemic, and about to die. We sort of have, do we intervene in that regard? But the mother says, I know what's right for my kid. Then we say, okay, you're right. She's abusing the kid. Then someone says, oh, but the government, Dr. Fauci says this vaccine has to be for kids, and the parent won't do it. Should the government then intervene? It's the same law,
right? And so,
but interpreted in different scenarios.
Traditionally, the American response to this is that we have a self-government. And to your point, Luke, very often it does not appear that we actually have a self-government increasingly. But notionally, that's the idea, at least. And so, within.
So before they go on too much further, I want to make sure we are circling on the actual issue. Is that we can have these laws in the context that we're thinking of, the experiences that we have, whatever we see going on. But people themselves, families, individuals, whatever, are so unique that whatever law you have, whatever law you put on the books, you simply cannot anticipate all of the variables and all of the nuances. And so politics is something that continually needs to be updated and refined and whatever. But because of this uniparty dichotomy statist establishment bullshit, as Luke is talking about, we don't get to progress because we're just getting back to, the pendulum where this side's doing better now, but then the other side comes back and undoes all that. And then they're doing better. And then the other side comes back and we all agree that is what happened, is what's happening. Nobody's denying that. And so all people like me, like Dave Smith, like Luke Rudkowski are saying is, hey, maybe we should step outside that dichotomy. Maybe we should step outside that two-party dichotomy and see what other ideas can fit in this political structure that we have.
In the self-government, we have the right as citizens to come to answers on these questions and say, the all-soy diet, that is abusive. You're not allowed to do that. The vaccine, no, we're not going to make you vaccinate your kids. And that's particular, but that does mean that we have the right to impose our views of the world on others. That is the premise and prerequisite of self-government. If you do not do that, then well, you'll have to impose some other political order.
But I feel like this is the pot calling the kettle black. You can't be like, hey, you guys are trying to impose things on me. When you're like, yeah, we need to use authoritarianism to get rid of this. Like, even if you're not wrong, you're not in the place to be making the point that you're making. This is, I think, like everything in nature that dies and fuels new life by returning to the earth and the ocean. Even governments need a rebirth every once in a while, to be honest. You are not wrong, but a rebirth doesn't mean, in terms of a government, doesn't mean we go from where we are today and then we just hit reset. It's like Greece or Rome, where the empire falls and the Soviet Union takes over. And isn't there something that has to do with the Soviet Union and war, like right now? Oh, yeah. We're in a world war with Russia. So, yes, it is very natural that the American empire will fall. But that is not a good thing for you as an American.
Which will get you right back to the same problem.
Let me ask you, Luke. If a kid had strep throat, bacterial, and the doctor said, we're going to, I don't know if the actual...
I'm going to come back to this because this is, Doug's question. This is directly relevant. So I want to make sure we're giving this the proper attention.
And, well, you'll have to impose some other political order, which will get you right back to the same problem.
Let me ask you, Luke. If a kid had strep throat, bacterial, and the doctor said, we're going to, I don't know what the actual treatment is, amoxicillin?
Yeah, I guess.
And the mother says, no, I don't want any of that weird stuff. We're going to give him tree bark. Do you think that...
I was going to say something. All right. So we got strep throat. We're not going to use antibiotics. We're going to use tree bark. Going back to Doug's question, is it okay to become authoritarian when, instead of gender reassignment, now we're talking about somebody who has strep throat and the mother is refusing the doctor's orders saying to take the amoxicillin or whatever, and they want to go with tree bark? That's the situation.
The government should intervene or just let the kid die?
There's a lot of variables in that particular situation. So again, hypotheticals are not my favorite. I don't think it's fair to even...
That's cope. Come on, Luke.
Issue a lot of those kind of...
Well, come on.
You have to be able to answer these questions, though. You have... I mean, whether you like the hypothetical or not, we're trying to understand what is the idea that you want to play out. So you have to play it out.
Hold on there a minute. Answer the question. Don't try and patter your way out.
I'm not pattering my way. I'm addressing the situation. I don't think it's a fair. I don't think it's a fair question. Now, obviously,
how's it not a fair question? A kid has a very simply curable bacterial infection, and the mom doesn't want to give him medicine. Should the government intervene?
At this instant, in this current situation, the government will intervene.
No, but should the intervene?
I don't have all the answers yet.
That's cope, bro. That's cope. You're acting like you got all the answers. You're sitting on a show talking to a microphone, broadcasting out to 10,000 people. Nobody's asking you to have all the answers. But when you claim to have an answer, and then somebody challenges that, you either have to have the answer or have a reason why it's not reasonable for you to be able to answer that. So Luke was talking about how, in nature, everything dies, rebirth. Goes on to say there's a period of cultural and political stagnation in every country, and we've reached out. If we want to hold on to the ideals of America, we have to get out ahead and reset before they fall. I agree with you, but I would not use the word reset because you don't want a reset. You want a course correction. A reset means we start from zero. A reset means that China is the world leader or Russia is the world leader. You do not want that. Mike says the problem is most people running the government. The problem is most people run to the government first for problems. Guys, I am sorry. I don't know what is going on with me today. People run to the government for first for problem solving, then thinking of other alternatives. And that is directly because we have established a culture where we accept that the government has all the answers and the government is always right and the government can do this, that, and the other. So why would we go anywhere else? The government can fix it. Daddy government can fix it. Even when Trump was in office, do you think like welfare recipients were like, oh, I hate Trump. I'm not doing that. No. You're absolutely right, Mike. Luke says, all those countries thought they were in their golden periods, though. Too ignorant to realize the jig is up. We know now, we know more than ever with the internet how we are in our decline. We know that. Most people have no fucking clue. Ask your random person on the street about the fourth turning, about weak man make strong, or weak man make bad time, you know, all of that. People don't know about this stuff. We are the ones that are paying attention to this stuff. We are the ones that know this. This is why I need you guys to take the fucking URL and post it everywhere. Because, Cloak, you're wrong. People don't know this shit. That's why I'm talking about it. You know it. I know you know it. But it's people don't. Hey, we got Kelly in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Glad you are here. Doug says, exactly. Even if going away from fossil fuels to green energy should be a process, as opposed to just shutting down pipelines immediately and leaving we the people to suffer their incompetence. Perfect analogy. Perfect analogy. We can't just turn off fossil fuels.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, Greta. We cannot. People will die. That doesn't mean we, as a global community, should be trying to move towards things that don't, destroy the planet. But this green energy, like climate change, is the worst thing ever, and we need to turn off our air conditioners right now. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. To your channels and channel. Yeah, drop that link wherever, anywhere, everywhere. Discord, Facebook, other YouTube videos, on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, all of that stuff. That's how this party is gonna blow up. And I can't do it myself. So yeah, wherever you could think of, post it up there. Cook says they don't know about this stuff, but they sure as shit know about gas prices. Yeah, but that's all they're thinking about. If the gas prices go back down, which they have to, for the most part, we were at like 250. Now we're at like 315. That was what I saw today. But how much do you hear people talking about even the war anymore? People are not talking about gas prices. People are not talking about the war. People are not talking about this stuff. They know about property costs. Yeah, they know about food prices. They know about the 7 different taxes they have to file. But that is all that they know. Oh, this is what we got to do. This sucks. That's it. It's not like they have some plan as to like, oh, we should fight back against this. No, they're just NPCs that just go through life and be like, yeah, I guess that's what it is. Like says, Reagan said, government is not the solution to the problem. It is the problem. 100% agreed. All right, where were we? Let's get back to the beginning. Oh yeah, Luke's out here coping.
A lot of variables in that particular situation. So again, hypotheticals are not my favorite. I don't think it's fair to even issue a lot of those kind of.
Well, come on, hold on there a minute. Answer the question here. Don't try and patter your way out.
I'm not pattering my way. I'm addressing the
yes,
situation.
you are.
I don't think it's a fair. I don't think it's a fair question.
And I want to point out. That Luke is the one that I agree with most at this table, but I'm not afraid to call him out for coping and trying to dodge the question, because that is exactly what he's trying to do.
Now obviously,
how's it not a fair question? A kid has a very simply curable bacterial infection. The mom doesn't want to give him medicine. Should the government intervene?
At this instant, in this current situation, the government will intervene.
No, but should they?
I don't have all the answers.
This is the challenge when I start thinking about how, yes, I want to be much more libertarian. I don't like vaccine mandates.
Yep.
And when we say something like, look, I've had, when I was a kid, strep throat or whatever, and they gave me that pink stuff that tasted really, really great. It was like strawberry flavored amoxicillin or something. And it cures you. We know antibiotics cure diseases.
Shout out to fungus.
Shout out to fungus. So if I see a parent who's like, I'm going to rub crystals on my kid, I'm like, well, look, I don't like the idea that the government can come in and tell a parent how to raise their kid. That's a big problem. But there's also, oh man, what do you do? We know that antibiotics can cure certain diseases. How do we navigate this when Dr. Fauci says you must do this for your kid, even if it's like, we're in phase 3 trials, it's only been a couple of years. At that point, you're like, I object. But it's this at the core. The nuance of the situation is different, but it's the same thing. Do I accept the government can intervene when a person defies the science?
So these clearly create problems, but I would argue that whether it has to do with the Fauci ouchie or it has to do with tree bark or crystals or anything else, we have to have faith in humanity. You all want to talk about faith? You have to have faith in humanity. If you don't think people can survive without the government telling them what to do, then you don't think they can survive. If you don't think people can survive without the government telling them what to do, then you don't have faith that people can survive, period. Or you have a grave misunderstanding of what the function of government is. If you are relying on the government, you are fucked. Luke said the educational system, being mandatory yet being so dog shit for most everyone, is a primary source of the blame for government dependence. I mean, everything the government does that makes us rely on them moves towards government dependence. And so if again, going back to the idea of the utopian ideal that we know is not practical, but you're going to use as our North Star to try to get as close as we can, libertarianism, and I'm warming up to anarcho-capitalism too, because these are ideals. I don't think that we will ever be in a governmentless country, nor would I want to. So with that information, I can feel comfortable pushing towards that because I know I'm going to get pushback and we're going to land somewhere in the middle. That is politicking.
Man, now
not just crying about what you don't like or saying, we should do this and I should have these rights. That's what politicking actually is.
I'm watching a kid die of strep throat when I know we could save his life because I don't want someone to be forced to inject their kid over here. I don't have the answer for that.
Well, there's also...
Yeah, and so back to the specific example, I think because of all of what I just said, that kid gotta die. That kid gotta die. Because the family is the unit. And the family has failed itself. And I am completely okay with that because I didn't get jabbed. And I made that decision despite medical, everything. And if I had died because of Rona, then I would not blame anybody. I would have just made that choice. That was the choice that I made. I chose to take that risk. And if I had died, then that would have been it. That's how America should fucking work. Mike says, I was on a cruise ship and I realized we are in international waters. Really did not have a government ruling over us. No chaos on the boat, but we had private police. Scale it up. It'll work. It'll work. Cloak says, you know what would be the best education you can teach? Monday through Saturday and have community demonstrations and participations for practical skills. That alone, man, that would help so much. This is what you're starting to see with homeschooling pods. So when I was in like grade school, only weird religious kids were homeschooled. If you remember the beginning, I think it's Joe Dirt, right? I think it's Joe Dirt. I don't know. There's some 2000s, PG-13 comedy movie, and there's a little scene with a bunch of kids, and they have a typical Southern accent. Like, we go to homeschool, and we know the dinosaurs and God, and some obviously inaccurate shit. That was the idea of what homeschool was 15 years ago. But now with the internet, people are able to collectivize individually and do these teaching pods where you have 10 kids that are homeschooled. And maybe you rent out an office space and pay a tutor, or, you know, each parent, you know, takes a turn of hosting school at their house, or whatever the situation is. That is helping those children. And those kids who are doing that right now, while most people are not, those are going to be the millionaires in 20 years. Mark my words. The overwhelming majority of the Fortune 500 list in, let's say 15 years, will be overwhelmingly people who did not go to public school. Overwhelmingly. Mark my words.
One, there's a difference between amoxicillin and the Fauci-ouchie. You know, we have a lot more long-term data on one of those than the other. But also, to your point, can the government do this? There is a historical matter here, which you've pointed out, Luke, which is that throughout all of human history, in every single society, in every single place on planet Earth, the government, by which we mean people having power within political communities, do impose those things. Every single place. Occasionally, anarchists will say, you know, in 8th century Iceland or something. But you know, okay. But everywhere for all the history. Yeah,
well,
right.
If you look at government interventions, I mean, again, anarchism doesn't have all the solutions, doesn't have all the answers, and I do believe children should always be heard.
Neither does any political ideology. We have not developed a perfect ideology. I feel like that needs to be said, because some people act like they have the answer. I act like I have the answer when it comes to bridging the gap between the dogma of the left and the dogma of the right. And that is a very slim thing on something that I believe I genuinely could solve. But some people think, like, you can't tell me nothing. I know it all. Luke says, education being mandatory makes kids feel like they're a job, unengaging, but if they build a sense of exploration and curiosity again, I agree. And I do agree that high school education should be mandatory. We're at a place in society where technology is such that you have to have a certain level of understanding. And simply using these devices are so advanced that, you know, I have no fucking idea the mechanics and the actual process of how this computer is on your screen right now. Like I get the basics of it, but I couldn't explain it to you. And so similarly, these kids that are growing up, even though they're very savvy with technology, that doesn't mean they're going to know more things that don't come from technology. So if you fast forward to like Neuralink times, then okay, now we're having a different conversation. But before that, I definitely think that K through 12 should be mandatory. But as I was saying before, if school looks more like these homeschooling pods, and again, it could even be at a fucking school. It can be at a school. You rent out a classroom and you do homeschooling there. You have your own rules, you have your own thing. And what you're talking about, Clue. Building a sense of exploration and curiosity. You're absolutely right. That would guarantee a collective IQ raises. And that is possible. But not through the government. Not through the government.
Obviously, that should be a common.
No. Hold on.
Common sense. But hold on.
Wait, if you make a point, I've got to address the point.
Okay, but this is the larger point that I wanted to make here. I'm not finished here. I'm laying down the groundwork for this point.
But you don't
Getting defensive.
agree with that. You don't think kids should always be protected.
It depends on the circumstances and situations. I don't want to be the central controller deciding a lot of these things. A lot of these things will be decided by individuals or communities or families and neighborhoods that will decide for themselves what is right. And I believe at the end of the day, that is a better thing that will happen rather than a government coming in and taking a kid and putting them into CPS.
So that's a little bit better in terms of my claim that he's copping out. Because I think what he's trying to express is that I am not trying to be the one who says this is what should happen here, this is what happened here, this is what should happen here. That's what you on the left and the right are doing. What I'm saying is I know what I want to do with my family and my community, but if you have something different that you want to do with your family and your community, I am in support of that. Now, if you're talking about another community should be allowed to, let these children die because the parents won't give them amoxicillin and are giving them tree bark, there is something to be said there. Because Tim was just like, hold on, but you don't think the kids should always be protected. I don't think that's true. I think the more accurate statement would be that I don't think that the government should be in charge of keeping children safe. He absolutely thinks children should be safe. It's just not the government's job.
CPS.
Wait,
look what happens at CPS. Look at how horrible our CPS system is. Look at how many kids get hurt inside the CPS system.
I have a question.
So all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, I don't have all the answers and solutions here. No one does. Obviously, there's flaws in every single political argument and political ideology. Yes, obviously. But at the end of the day, individuals should decide for themselves, not central controllers.
So let me ask a simple
question.
Two circumstances.
Okay. So this is I want to hear from you guys what you think about whatever Tim's about to say. So 2 circumstances.
Government says we will not intervene in what the family decides to do with their child. The family then decides they will sterilize and castrate their kid and give them hormones. Second scenario.
You mean what they're doing right now?
Family
protection.
Second scenario. Family says we will not give this kid hormone therapy and surgery, and the government does intervene. Which one's the right or wrong one? Do we?
Whoa. Whoa. I gotta hear that again. That was brilliant. This is a brilliant question.
But at the end of the day, individuals should decide for themselves, not central controllers.
So let me ask a simple question.
Okay. So we have 2 situations.
2 circumstances. Government says we will not intervene in what the family decides to do with their child. The family then decides they will sterilize and castrate their kid and give them hormones. Second scenario.
You mean what they're doing right now?
Exactly. So we have one scenario where the government allows you to do these horrible things that most of us, I think, agree that are horrible things. The government allows you or will not intervene in you doing these horrible things. Okay, that's one situation.
Family
protection.
Second scenario. Family says we will not give this kid hormone therapy and surgery, and the government does intervene.
Right.
Which one?
So now we have more like what Canada and the UK are doing, where usually it's one parent who doesn't want to transition the child, and one does, and the government will usually go with the one that wants to transition. So Doug says, I like this line of thinking. Keep government out and let people make the decisions. Hey, we got Roger Sterling, NY in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So the January 6th committee announced it will refer at least 3 criminal charges against Trump to the Justice Department, including insurrection, obstruction of an official proceeding, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government. We'll see how far that goes. But we are looking at last night's Timcast IRL with Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and talking about libertarian politics versus Republican politics. Welcome to the party. Doug goes on to say, now I see where in the grand scheme of things, people actually like when government is in control of them. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. People don't want to have to think. People don't want to have to decide. People don't want to have to do any of that. And that's why this is such a relevant conversation, because there's a lot of people who just want to just tell me what to do. Ethan Klein. There's a whole government body that just tells you what to do. You don't even have to think about it. That's exactly what we're fighting against culturally. Cook says, I lean towards the second. Being right or being wrong? I believe that parents normally make innocuous choices for their children, but the parents in that hypothetical do not and cannot receive their child's consent. So you want the government to get in between parents and their children. Okay. Roger said, do you think Trump's a Republican? Well, yeah. not before he was a Republican, but you know, when you put R next to your name, that's what that means.
One's the right or wrong one. Do we say the government should not intervene in the parents' decision as they decide to give their kid what they deem best, a sex change? Or do we stop the government from forcing the sex change because the child wants it and the state deems it to be
taking responsibility away from yourself, taking
Roger, yeah, you're kind of derailing this, but yes, it actually that's what that means. Do I think that he is more conservative or liberal in his political leanings, socially or fiscally? That's a different question. But is he a Republican? Yes. That's what that means. That you registered as a Republican. That is what that question means.
decisions away from the family, from the community, is to me a recipe for disaster.
So here's
this is what I'm arguing against. That's my main argument.
Do you think
not some emotional argument about kicking a baby?
If a mother and father
he's still mad
that their child of 12 wants to be castrated and injected with hormones, should we just say it's your choice as a parent?
Yes.
I think that should be pushed back against it in many different ways. That's a horrible decision. That's going to hurt the child, and I think there should at least be informed consent and some community involvement and participation
for the kid.
He's absolutely right. I think it's an impossible situation. There is no right answer to that. But at the end of the day, the least worst situation is getting, as Kelly says here, get the government the hell out of the way. That's one situation where, parents, governments, whatever, people have shit lives. You're not going to get rid of that. So that's not a political discussion that we're having. We're trying to minimize. And so if we're talking about these situations, do we think more often the government is going to be more right than the parents? Or do you think the parents are going to be more often right than the government? That's all it comes down to. I mean, Roger, if it's deeper, feel free to elaborate. But you've asked a very simple, direct question, and I gave you a very direct answer. Happy to talk about it further, but you got some work to do here. Luke says, I'm not anti-government, but morality needs to be applied in law as opposed to dispassionate objectivism, because we're not objective and not all circumstances are the same. I'd prefer government out of the way entirely too, though, just to support on that. Exactly. That is the point. Is that it gets muddy. It gets muddy. And so at the end of the day, there's going to be people who fall through the cracks. If you make the government the ultimate authority, then there's going to be parents whose children have been mutilated against their will. If you put it in the parents, there's going to be children who have transitioned because they just, part of the social contagion thing we were talking about, and they're going to have terrible lives. But people need to be free to make their own decisions. And I think, with Mike, no child should be able to get a sex change until age 18. The fact that that's a controversial statement is crazy to me. We've made it very clear that we draw the arbitrary line of adulthood and deciding what is appropriate for you and your person is 18. There's not a single thing that happens between 11:59 and 59 seconds of the last day that you're 17 and exactly 12 midnight on your birthday. Zero. There's nothing. There's nothing that changes in that time. So yes, it is an arbitrary line. But we have to draw an arbitrary line somewhere. And so we've drawn that line. Again, there's going to be people who fall through the cracks, and maybe they're younger than 18, and it would be beneficial to them to transition. That doesn't mean that it's logical for the government to now say all children who want to transition before 18 should transition. That is insane. And once you turn 18, if you want to transition, just fucking transition.
Well, the parents, this is the thing. Kids should always be protected. This is where I disagree with a lot of the bigger kind of libertarian and anarchist ideas, especially when they say we got to sell heroin to kids. Obviously, that's the wrong idea. Obviously, that's something that I stand against, and I made clear many times before on this particular show.
And it's important that he brings that up because much like atheism, libertarianism is a very wide umbrella and has a lot of claims, a lot of policy positions and things like that that get attached to that name that will fit under the umbrella, but aren't necessarily part of the label. So with atheism, there's a lot of atheists who affirmatively believe that no God exists. That does not make them not atheists, but you don't have to believe that to be an atheist. You simply need to lack a belief in a God or gods. Similarly, libertarians want to believe in property rights and the non-aggression principle. How far you take that and how you apply that to different laws and different circumstances doesn't make, just because it's different than somebody else doesn't make you not a libertarian. It's just different. There's levels to this shit. There's levels to this shit. Where are we? 18 is too little of an age frame for me. It should be 25 because that's around the age in our current understanding of science when your brain stops growing. I agree. I think even 2 decades ago, 18 was fine. I think social media has stunted, and this was the science back then, that your brain didn't fully develop until you're 25. But there was enough life experience that you would get from age 14 to 18 that would be enough for what the world was. But then the internet came, social media came, and changed everything. So I agree. I would not be, as long as they raise the age for everything and make it the same. So I think 21. I think everything should be 21. I wouldn't be opposed to 25, but I would sure shit hate to be that 20-year-old who all my friends have turned 21, and now I gotta wait until I'm 25 to go to the bar. But yeah, I think 21 is a much better place to draw that arbitrary line. 25 seems like it's just a little bit too impractical because there's too many people that by age 20, it's not practical for them to have mommy around all the time and making sure this, that, and the other. So I get what you're saying, but I think 21 would probably, if I had to pick another arbitrary number, that's where I would go. Kelly says, protect those who can't decide for themselves and leave those without that ability to decide to natural opportunity. 100%, brother, 100%. Some states have laws that you cannot tattoo a child until they're 18. I believe New Jersey is one of them. If not, then it's 16 with a parental signature. But yeah, I mean, we have drawn arbitrary lines that we all agree are good lines to draw. I don't think anybody is any serious person is out here campaigning that 5-year-olds should be able to walk into a tattoo parlor and get a tattoo. But they can do other, more egregious versions of irreversible change to their body. Make it make sense. Yup. Levels to this shit.
But when it comes to these important decisions, at the end of the day, I do believe, and I have a lot more faith in a family, in a community, in the neighborhood, and in individuals rather than the big government that we have now that uses our tax dollars in horrible ways and hurts way more people than the larger ideologies of anarchism, which I believe at the end of the day would lead to less harm reduction.
I just wanted to say that that scenario I gave of the parents are doing it and the government doesn't intervene, and the parents don't want it and the government does intervene, exemplifies my point about how laws are based on amorphous morals, analog morals. Like, in which circumstance do we decide the government is or isn't right?
So this, I want to bring a throwback. Now, many of you may not even know what Anna Rude means. Anna Rude is a person. If you know who Anna Rude is, then you will know exactly where I'm going with this. That a lot of what I talk about is cultural and has to go through some level of moral judgment. Anna Rude, an old friend of the channel who, kind of overstayed his welcome, is a very intelligent 20, 21-year-old, something like that, in school for econometrics, very intelligent dude, but has never spent a day of his life outside of a book. I'm being facetious and hyperbolic, obviously, but he thinks that everything comes down to the numbers. And I know for a fact that he would not be able to give an answer that aligns with his politics to the situation that Tim just gave. Kluk said, I think certain types of alcohol should be lower if consumed at low enough rate because people pair or cook food. Yeah, I mean, that's... I mean, if they could make low proof alcohol that you could buy, you know, maybe it's above, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 proof, then or if it's below 15 proof, you can sell it in a shopping mart, you know, like a ShopRite or whatever. Mike agrees. You can move that up to 21. I'll have to give some thought to enacting the values of Christianity without believing in God. I do like that better than yielding to government or to government to be the God to infringe upon us. Are you the one that answered the poll about that? No, because that makes sense. But you know what you're saying makes sense. And that's that was the thinking. It's just leftists who are overwhelmingly atheist have not done the work that people like myself have done to find that moral compass. And the government is allowing that to continue. And so the role that we have to play, or at least that I feel I have to play, is to show that we don't need a dogma, whether it's from the government or from some magical place. We don't need it. We can have conversations like this and then find the better ideas and answers and move the fuck on.
Well, and also the interpretation of intervention here is, I think, problematic because the government, by which, and Luke, you keep conflating these things where you say, well, no, I don't like the government, I just like community. Well, the government is the expression of the political community, especially in a notionally self-governing.
Especially now with what's happening with the elections, especially now with the way that they're running things.
Well, certain elections are an expression.
But we're falling
maybe
apart.
not Maricopa County.
That's cope on Michael Knowles' part. There is absolutely a difference between your community and the federal government. Come on.
Especially now with how much debt they put us in, especially now with the third. I mean,
the national debt is an expression of the political community making choices. Absolutely.
This is how I drift more away from anarchism and libertarianism.
Down.
I recognize sometimes we want the government to intervene, sometimes we don't. And there's no way to define it other than a judgment.
It just seems to me
sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. There are certain things that are case-by-case basis. And that's okay.
It seems to me the government is always intervening in the sense that we live in a society, we live in a political community. In order to live together in a society, we come up with rules and norms and institutions to mediate the people in that society, the families and the.
But why can't communities do that? Why do you need a government to do that?
That is what a government is. This is the expression of the expression of force.
I think they're playing semantics. They're playing semantic games. He's asking, why do you need an established government that is the government in order to accomplish the things that you were talking about? And then Michael Knowles is just saying, well, the community is a government. No, it's not. Those are two different words, and they mean two different things. The government may come from the community. Obviously, where the fuck else would it come from? But to act like saying the community and the government are one and the same. In this context, nah, bro. Get the fuck out of here.
That's been highly bastardized and highly incorrect with the way the government is now.
You're talking about federal government and large government, right? You're advocating for smaller, localized government.
I'm talking what essentially is a mafia coming in there and saying, I will impose my will on you because I know what's best for you. I'm against those ideas.
But when we're talking about, let's just use the term political community then, because which I think is actually more precise. Within a political community, there is always a way that people are living and being raised. So, for instance, if the mode of education within the political community says that men and women are different and men can't become women and women can't become men, then I guess you're not going to have these kids getting castrated and injected with poison. But is that the government intervening. I just think this idea that the government is active or passive is no, the government just is. The political community just is, and we're always constantly living in the state of standards and norms. And so the question is not this procedural question is, will the government do something or not? The question is just, what is the government doing?
Thanks for watching this.
Yeah, I think Kluk is on point here. So I think a lot of the misunderstandings and definitions come from intent versus literal interpretation. And that seems to be what happened in this clip. Not just in this clip, my friend, but all across the political landscape. The difference is these gentlemen, much like many others on both sides, are legitimately arguing these positions in good faith. The problem is you have too many people, again, on both sides, but one side has the push of the actual government and the media establishment behind them. They're not having conversations in good faith. And so they know that the definitions can come from intent versus literal interpretation. So they use that wherever it's most convenient. And you guys know the term that I use for that, right? Somebody put it in the chat. Y'all, somebody knows it. Mike says, I don't want no government. I just want a very small government. Take two. I don't want no government. I just want a small government. There we go. I'm not good at reading out loud, guys. But yeah, so I think we have one more and then one more shorter one. Not that short. And then the trying to make a decision. Yeah, and then we'll do so. Okay. We're gonna. There we go. That's exactly what this is. Semantic obfuscation. Favorite phrase and my least favorite thing in all of existence. It's just bad. So this last clip is where they are talking about what Elon's doing with Twitter, and a bunch of leftist journalists got nuked, according to the title, from doxing people.
John Levine reports, reporters covering Elon Musk being nuked. Donnie O'Sullivan for CNN, Drew Harwell for Washington Post, Ryan Mack for the New York Times, and Aaron Rupar, Independent, all gone.
Awesome. Love
They're
it.
gone. Take a look at this. So Libs of TikTok says Taylor Lorenz just scrubbed her entire Twitter account.
What?
Oh me, oh my. Times they are a-changing.
Love it.
Prominent liberal journalist Aaron Rupar suspended by Twitter. For those that aren't familiar with Aaron Rupar, there's a verb. It's called ruparing, or to rupar. Yeah. And it's when you take an out-of-context clip and apply false context to manipulate people. Yeah. That is ruparing. So he got nuked, and I think we have a tweet here. Yasser Ali says, Aaron Rupar tells me he has not received any correspondence from Twitter and does not know why his account is suspended.
I believe Rupar's the guy that sued. Didn't he sue the previous Twitter administration to get his account back? Or am I thinking of a different guy?
Someone else. They would never suspend that guy. I'm wondering if the reason they got suspended was for posting something pertaining to his location. I don't know for sure, but Elon just the other day posted a video of a guy who attacked his family, his kid.
Who looked like an Antifa guy.
Yep.
He was dressed like one,
Totally
acting like one. Yeah.
Conservatives don't do that. Conservative guy, in fact, I got to be honest. I put out that tweet where I was like, Neuralink was, I used to think it was scary and dangerous, and then Elon agreed with me ideologically, now I like it. Like, I'd be willing to bet anyone on the right who's crazy enough to track down Musk would be like, we love you, Elon.
Of course.
Keep it up.
Yeah. You always got false flags. You never truly judge a book by its cover. Like,
He did own a car.
Speechless.
That's true.
And it was not a bad car. So
that's the one wrinkle in the argument here.
Some kind of wealth asset.
But it's great. I don't care at all. So, I don't want to hear this. Well, we thought Elon was going to be the free speech absolutist, and now he's suspending. No, I didn't. I don't know. I'm not a free speech absolutist. I believe in standards and norms. And you know what I really believe in? Banning these left-wing losers. And I really believe, especially banning that guy who's tracking Elon's plane. That guy's gone. Right. But the rest.
So I mean, I want to know what you guys think. I put up a poll about whether you think doxing should be a bannable offense. I do. I understand that is not strictly free speech to no end. You could say I get that, but there's levels to this shit. There's nuance to this shit. And when you're putting people in danger, even if it's not against the law, it should certainly be something that is looked down upon by the rest of the community. That's the kind of change that I want to see. not top down, bottom up. But we're all saying like, you know what? If somebody doxes somebody, we're all gonna treat them like a fucking loser because that's loser shit. People dox people because they don't have better arguments. People don't dox those who are willing to sit down and have a rational conversation. So I definitely think doxing is something that should get you banned. Call me authoritarian.
Rest of them too. I see absolutely no reason for Elon Musk to tolerate them remaining on Twitter.
How do you define free speech?
Well, I define free speech as I define free speech, I suppose, as the founding fathers might have defined free speech, which is, or even as John Locke, the father of liberalism, might have defined free speech, which is not totally free. Which is, yes, we have broad toleration for lots of different things, but there are limits, and they're pretty severe limits. I mean, let's not forget, we're not only talking about speech acts like fraud or direct threats or obscenity or things like that. A lot of people don't even think of obscenity these days as something not protected by free speech, but I would go further than that, all right? Yes, it's true that the libs have speech codes, but chivalry is a speech code too, you know, and I'm all for chivalry. I'm all for banning people who are degrading our society. I mean, you know, just...
I don't know what that means. Banning people who are degrading our society. That sounds like I would be very surprised if this is what he meant. But degrading our society kind of just sounds like what this whole show has been, like what they've been doing for the last 2-3 hours.
As a matter of historical fact, speech earlier on in American history was much more restricted in certain ways than it is right now. We had blasphemy laws for much of American history.
Laws.
And obscenity, we still have obscenity laws on the books. They just don't enforce them. In fact, now they only enforce it if you...
You know that this is not illegal, right? As long as there's a fire.
Have wholesome speech. If you speak obscenely, then you get to do it.
That's why I say culture is more important, because we got a ton of laws in the books they started ignoring.
Personally, I disagree, because who do you decide who's degrading society with what ideas? I think if there's bad ideas,
with your reason and your moral conscience and prudence.
Yeah, but who's going to be calling the shots here? I think that's important here. Exactly. And power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. But when it comes to bad ideas, they need to be challenged with good ideas. I think we need open debate. I think we need open conversation. And I'm very curious to see what happened here. And I'm more skeptical because I believe at the end of the day, even though we might not agree with each other, I still rather have that conversation rather than say, I just only want to hear myself.
Do we need to have...
Exactly. So when people come to the table, if you're tying it back to the doxing, which we all agree it should be a bannable offense, even though we are the free speech warriors. I mean, I don't know if all of you are, but definitely the majority of us. It just means so. So what part of Christianity? What Bible verse told you that doxing people should be a bannable offense? Didn't need one, right? You don't need one because you are a smart, rational, compassionate human being. Funny how that works, isn't it? Kelly says, well, you can't harm someone with your speech unless you're, not without directly inciting violence. You sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Have a conversation about the virtues of child pornography. Do we need to have...
Wow, I wish I knew that was coming.
That debate, that's a debate we really need to have.
That is one issue that obviously I stand with you on.
But I know you stand with me on child pornography.
Obviously,
but do you think we need to have the debate? You know, in the free marketplace. I don't think we do. I think
if there's idiots out there, right, who do believe in certain idiots, which there is, right?
Read the captions because I am not trying to have that. That word on my thing.
Why do we have to entertain them?
They deserve to be challenged. They deserve to be pushed back.
They deserve it
because. Well, but again. If you push people away, just like you do with the censorship that's been happening, you push people to more radicalized corners of the internet and they double down on their ideas rather than having a whole bunch of people telling them, hey, this is wrong and not acceptable here. By pushing them away, they won't have that kind of pushback in their life. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to hang around other, seedy people and think this is okay when it's not.
I actually
I blocked out seedy. Jesus Christ.
Would agree with you, Michael, on this one. I see Luke's point, but I think it can be refined. Like, There's a reason why we publicly denounce. There's a reason why you're saying right now we don't need to have a debate. It's settled.
We
it's done.
figured it out.
But that's
Exactly.
one issue, but that's not all the issues.
No, for sure. And that means that there will come a time when you need to explain to someone who maybe says, well, people should be allowed to have their opinions. And you can be like, look, there's some things that are so morally reprehensible that it's universally despised among most human beings. And, you know, we will tell you why it's bad.
I go further than that. I'm willing to, I mean, obviously not on YouTube because of the rules of YouTube, but if you think that CP is something that should be accepted in society, I'm happy to have that conversation. I am very confident that you will not get over on me. I am very confident that there is nothing you can say or do that will ever make me agree that CP is something that should exist in any form ever. So bring it on. If you're afraid of that debate, I don't really know what to tell you.
This was William F. Buckley Jr., who was credited as the founder of the mainstream post-war conservative movement. As urbane and open-minded a fellow as ever there was, he had a debate on his show with a neoconservative, Leo Chern. And Chern said, we need to have the open society and the free marketplace of ideas. And Bill Buckley said, you know, I actually think we can close society off a little bit. Yes, we discuss lots of things, but he said, I'm an epistemological optimist. I think that certain things are settled and we don't really need to entertain Nazis or communists.
Your political opponents are doing the same exact thing you're doing in Europe, arresting people for saying that men can't be lesbians.
Luke, I don't know what this is, so I'm not going to put it out.
They're using the same justifications and arguments you are, and this is why I think it's a slippery slope.
They're
saying
using the same procedures, but the substance of what they are doing is the opposite.
They're saying, I know what's best for society. I know what ideas are good or bad.
Right,
we have to stop these ideas. We have to stop right-wing ideas.
But there's
therefore, if you hurt people with your ideas, we have to stop you, censor you, and throw you in
but
jail.
Look, the difference is that there's a difference between good and bad. So when
this is the crux of the dogmatic argument. Well, yeah, we're both dogmatic and authoritarian, but I'm right and they're wrong. What do you think the liberals are saying? Listen to him make this argument. Listen to him make this argument. And then ask him if you think it is, if it is at all possible in anywhere in the universe, is there a possibility that what you believe is incorrect? First, he would probably say no, because I believe in God, and which shows the flaw in your thinking already. But even if you are to say that I could be wrong, that is precisely Luke's point about why nobody should have that authority, because everybody thinks they're right. You think leftists sit around and be like, oh my God, we're so wrong about these issues, but we just have to keep going because reasons. That's not how it works. Everybody thinks they're right. Everybody thinks they have the right answers. This is why we fight against anybody having that ultimate power.
Stop you, censor you, and throw you in
But
jail.
look, the difference is that there's a difference between good and bad. So if I'm the CEO of Twitter and I'm determining what the standards and norms are on Twitter, and I encourage good, true, and beautiful things, and I discourage ugly, false, and wicked things, that's not the same thing as what the libs do.
But that's based off your interpretation, because for them, what's beautiful is like a drag queen, right? That's beautiful for them. But that's your interpretation.
But they're wrong is the thing. And so we have faculties of reason and moral conscience, and we can perceive the world and come to fairly reliable conclusions.
So how do you convince them of that? I agree with you. They are wrong. You are right when it comes to this issue. Okay. This is politics. Do you want to win or do you want to be right?
Let me just make a point here. We like to believe that the world is logical, that we can set forth a set of rules that say you cannot do X, Y, and Z. And then what we discover is the interpretations of X, Y, and Z vary wildly, and we actually struggle to operate.
I don't know how this
Humans struggle to operate on a moral, logical level. In that, if you come out and say, you know, don't be mean, don't be bad, don't hurt somebody, and then someone says, okay, well,
so remember, earlier he was talking about how morality doesn't come down to the numbers. It's not a binary or whatever the words he used. That it's not simple. There's levels, there's nuance, so on and so forth. So he's saying, don't be bad, don't hurt somebody, and then somebody says, okay.
Insulting you is my opinion, I'm not hurting, and then someone else interprets it as hurting. We see there's an issue there. My view is,
I mean, some people see that as an issue. You can insult me all the fuck you want.
I err towards mostly free speech. I agree with you on things like child porn. I think there's probably things we can say, do not advocate for something like that, right? Yeah. If you're advocating for that on the platform, we can restrict you or shut you down or something like this. The issue is, and I'll throw it back to the law, we have a bunch of laws in the books. Legally, you cannot do. but they don't enforce anymore because our
Right.
culture changed,
Right.
which means there is a centralized morality that that societies are willing to tolerate.
And guess where that does not come from?
That means we don't tolerate advocacy for child porn, and there's no reason to open up.
Stop saying that!
We don't tolerate it.
Well, increasingly, I don't know.
No, I know.
Balenciagas.
And that's the issue. So my pushback for you a little bit is there will be a debate whether you want it or not, because people will start pushing.
But I suppose the conservative view from the past 20 years is politics is downstream of culture. So stop passing laws. It's really just a libertarian view. Stop passing laws and just, I don't know.
Oh, so the conservative view for the last 20 years has been the libertarian view, but it's the libertarians' fault that the Republicans haven't succeeded. That'll make sense. Oh, come on. It works out so much better when it just goes.
Make better music or something. And I'm not really mocking it. Obviously, the culture matters a great deal, but you can't neatly separate these things. And the law is a teacher. So if I'm looking at how we got to this insane cultural position now, where we will be debating the virtues of child pornography and pedos, so it's already happening.
It's happening. They're accusing anybody who criticizes actual pedophiles.
What the fuck was that? Well, they already said that.
So it's already happening.
It's happening. They're accusing anybody who criticizes actual pedophiles. They go, "Why are you talking about gay people?"
But we got here.
You just mentioned
But
it,
we
yeah.
got here because of censorship, because of people saying you can't counter this. No. We got here because those ideas haven't been able to be challenged because people have been censored for going against them.
Luke,
People have been arrested for going against them.
Why, when we had a more censor-minded regime that censored bad things and promoted good things, as opposed to what we have now, which is a censorship regime that promotes bad things and suppresses good things.
Like what's an example? What do you mean?
Well, I would say, let's see, the Pilgrims landed Plymouth Rock in 1620. And then from 1620 up through the founding of the American nation, up through about, the early 60s, we had a basic consensus on what is moral and what is immoral. And it was Christianity. It was based on the Christian moral view. And then in the 1960s, you saw, led by the government, led by Supreme Court decisions, led by laws that weakened some of the censorship regime.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. What does that have to do with the legitimacy of the claims made by your religion? If your entire worldview, faith, religion, whatever, can't stand up to a government psyop, sounds like your God sucks. Because the government definitely does. So if they're beating your God.
You saw the attacks on McCarthyism in the House Un-American Activities Committee. You saw the free speech movement at Berkeley that led to a weakening of our obscenity laws. You saw a weakening of our laws prescribing certain sexual behaviors that then led to the sexual revolution. When you opened up that society much more, what happened? Did it lead to this wonderful period of flourishing? No, the society's gone downhill. It's gone straight to pot ever since.
But the dads used to beat the moms relentlessly.
Did
that
they?
was like
Did
they just
they?
didn't talk
Did
about it.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
That's it. I'm glad that he did it. Did they though? I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think beating your wife was. I mean, we see it in old TV. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but much like, I don't know, you watch a coming of age movie about a teenager, and oh my God, I haven't had sex in 2 weeks. I'm dying here. When we know that a third of men either have never had sex or haven't had sex in the last year. Does it really? Is it though?
Sean Connery talked about he would smack women around and saw on TV and society was
bad men beat their wives today. And so it just seems to me what you're suggesting is this very progressive view that the past was terrible and the present's
before
great.
We had the conversation, good people beat their wives. It was just accepted. Now that we're able to have,
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think
since the dawn of man, the guys fall in line or face the consequences.
But is your argument, Ian, that in the past, the past was basically made up of these knuckle-dragging troglodyte men abusing their wives, and ever since we had the sexual revolution, now that doesn't happen? That just seems like a very progressive, fantastical point.
I think it was the internet, or it was really television and radio that broke the censorship mode. Whether we wanted it or not, the technology made us look at ourselves and be like, that's what we are. we need to deal with this because that's not cool.
But just
I can agree with that.
really quick, deciding what's good and deciding what's bad is arbitrary. Depends for who, depends for what society.
Wait,
Depends
hold
what
on. Let me-
individuals in
let me-
there.
let me-
But at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, the government's sitting there and saying, Dr. Fauci's there, and he's like, at the end of the day, it's good for society if we censor all
Fuck Fauci.
these other scientists and we let our doctrine
Yes.
through. So therefore, we need to censor this speech. We need to limit free speech. We need to ban accounts. And essentially, that's what I see you calling for.
So here's where I see where we're at. I err towards free speech, allow people to express their political views to be debated. But I think there's a little bit more limits than many of the anarchists and libertarians would be willing to entertain. And the reason I've come to this position where I used to just feel like, well, maybe you can say whatever you want, is because the system, as it's being laid out right now by you, in your view, Luke, allows the left to say whatever they want while weaponizing that to silence anyone who opposes them. Meanwhile, you're standing there saying, well, they're allowed to do it. I guess I'm banned and they're not.
Absolutely. No.
That is the conservative Republican position when it comes to libertarianism, and I just don't think that is the case. I don't think that you are unable to fight for your values if they're being infringed upon. I don't think that anarchism or libertarianism is not about saying, well, it's specifically about the government. It's the government. We need to take the power back as the people. All of you, all of us have been talking about how every little thing that we give to the government creates a greater and greater and greater dependence on that government. So it's not saying, oh, well, I'm banned and that's okay because they're not allowed to do that. No, it's fighting the cultural battle so that people don't feel that it is okay. Unfortunately, when we look at the case of Andrew Tate, seemed like a lot of people didn't agree with him being banned, including Elon Musk, which I would say is a good thing. Whether you like Andrew Tate or not.
No, the idea of banning speech is what created this exact society, and that's why these larger virtues and ideas need to be pushed
What I'm
back
saying
on.
is they are cheating, and you're playing fair, and you're losing because of it.
Also,
Wrong.
what society
Wrong.
doesn't have taboos? In what society is everything perfectly open?
The question is, what society? I remember this quote from Luke because it was a fucking bomb. What? Every society has taboos. And what society is everything perfectly
Open. I mean, that's never existed on Earth anywhere.
I agree. Yeah, you're right about that. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive towards
something that's impossible.
No, towards respecting speech and debating ideas.
Let's bring us back to the core story, right? The issue is Elon Musk choosing to ban who he wants, and my position, because I think this argument just go forever, but I think if we can bring.
So before he goes on, they might have clipped that part out, but I remember Luke went on to say that, well, the idea of taboos and having shame, I was talking about this earlier, is, or maybe I did get it from the Dave Smith podcast. That is what we need instead of the government. We don't need a law to enforce, I mean, not that we shouldn't have a law against things that should be illegal, but I'm saying the law shouldn't be the only thing that stops somebody from doing something wrong. It shouldn't be the fact that I can get sued that stops me from punching you in the face. It should be my lack of desire to cause you pain and my affirmative desire to live in a community where people aren't randomly punching each other in the face. The taboo of punching somebody in the face creates less need for the government to come in and intervene when someone gets punched in the face. I feel like, I mean, I didn't expect to be right about all this shit, but I feel like I am. So if I'm wrong, please let me know. Mike says the government is here to serve us, not us serving them. They forgot that. You're goddamn right. You're goddamn right, Mike.
Bring this back to the story. Elon Musk needs to set clearly defined parameters for what he wants, but then we also need judges to interpret. In the United States, we have laws, but laws can be challenged and judges interpret the law. So when a court, when a legislative body says you can't do X, someone says, well, hold on, X could also include Y. And then a judge says, good question. I'll give you my ruling tomorrow. The judge then looks at the law, looks at the precedent, hears the arguments, and then issues his judgment.
And that
the law is not just a...
And that is an inherent part of what government does. And I'm saying that as a good thing. So again, going back to whoever said, Mike said, I don't want no government. I just want very small government. Same. I don't think the government has zero purpose. I think there needs to be quote unquote objectivity, because of course it's not objectivity, but separate from political and financial interests. There needs to be something. And we have the three branches of government that are supposed to keep each other in check. But now the executive branch on both sides of the aisle, really starting with Obama, but the executive order has kind of taken a significant branch. I mean, they're all significant, but it's sidelined the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the land, supposed to be the most politics-proof branch of government, because they don't have to. They're appointed for life, so they don't have to run. They don't have to worry about what you think of them. They just have to do their job. Sidelined. It says, someone who was an atheist in my life, when I did come to faith in God, I discovered it was an invitation to a relationship, which is why I personally never try to force this on others. I do think that the default position for humanity is to look for a quote God in other forms, such as government. I agree, and that is why those of us who believe that it doesn't make sense to follow a religion or believe in things that don't have physical proof or empirical evidence, that you need to do the work to not just get away from the religious beliefs, but to inoculate yourself from just replacing one dogma with another. Philosophy is the way to do that. But I guess philosophy is not cool. It's not sexy. I don't know. I fucking love philosophy. But a lot of people just skip it. And they're just like, all right, well, I thought this thing, and now I don't, so I'll think this thing.
If yes, then, if one, then why, if two, then it is humans trying their best to interpret. The easiest way to put it is analog. It's not digital. It's a wave, not a point.
Great.
Which means that means we want it to be, there's free speech, we respect this, but then when you actually start looking into it, you're like, oh, hold on. Now we're getting into the advocacy for child porn part from the left.
God damn.
At a certain point, we're like, it may not be a call for violence, but are we going to tolerate that level of advocacy?
That analogy is.
Please stop saying CP.
It's the analog, not the digital. Where it's not just the law is not just a bunch of letters that self-interpret on a sheet of paper, but it involves a human aspect. And what this raises, this interpretive question.
Anna Root, are you listening?
I think undercuts what you're saying about good and bad, because you said that good and bad are just arbitrary, but you don't believe that. Nobody believes that.
It depends on who decides it, and it depends.
But let me ask you.
He said nobody believes that. That's not true. I believe that. I believe that there is no objective morality. That does not exist. However, when it comes to the discussion of what is the word morality and what does that mean and what are we talking about when we say morality, if we are not talking about the landscape of the closest thing to the best possible experience for the most amount of people versus the worst experience for all people, if we're not talking about the difference on that scale, then we're not really talking about the same thing. So if I'm talking about what is good and what is right and what is, I don't believe that there is some inherent piece of the universe. I certainly don't believe there's a God. I believe that there's no such thing as something that is objectively good. But as humans, we all have a similar anchoring to this part of the conversation, that we want to benefit ourselves and each other. And you could talk to Christians about veganism. Not covered in the Bible, is it? Kelly says, I was tripping at Bonnaroo. Hey, I wondered what makes people truly believe something. If left up to our instincts and natural emotion, it might get pretty dark and fucked up. It does. It does get pretty dark and fucked up. It is dark and fucked up. Well, I can't see what's on YouTube. I'm in StreamYard, and it's here, and it's a good comment. So we're keeping it up because you're right. The universe is yeah. Well, we got plenty of time. The universe is dark and fucked up. Life is dark and fucked up. You have the option amongst that darkness and fuck-uppery to seek out things that mitigate that. Because you're here. So you have the decision to continue living your life or to end yourself. Most of us don't want to end ourselves. Even sometimes we don't want to end ourselves. We don't actually want to end ourselves. You know? So it's dark and it's fucked up out here. We're all okay. What does that have to do with God and morality? It's something that you have to, from a secular perspective, understand that, hey, that it is what it is, and now I have to navigate that. Or you could just follow a dogma and let somebody tell you they've got it all figured out.
One question: Is it better to cook a pie for a widow than it is to
cilantro is good. You have to eat cilantro because I decided so, because I'm in power. That's essentially what.
Look, just answer this question: Is it better to cook a pie for a widow or to kick a baby in the head?
It's better to cook a pie, but not because of anything inherent to the universe. Because when we are having a discussion about morality, we are talking about human suffering and human well-being, and clearly, a pie will create more well-being than suffering, or than the suffering caused by kicking a baby. Where was God in that explanation? Where was the need for God in that explanation? This is the arrogance. This is the arrogance of acting like you fucking have all the answers because you've got this book. You don't. You don't even believe that you do. Because if you did, number one, you wouldn't be watching somebody called TheIndianJesus. And number two, there's a bunch of different shit that you'd be doing in your life. Well, that's true. That's true. They're telling people, so I ask, why do bad people get joy from evil? Because the universe is dark and fucked up. Fortunately, most people don't operate this way. But I would throw this question back to the Christians. I have no fucking clue why God would let this, a God that you believe in, that you worship, that you think can do anything, would allow people to do this. Especially when we understand that free will is a nonsensical idea. Beat you to it, pal. What exactly is free will? This is what we're going to talk about on the panel. But there is no such thing as free will. There cannot be a such thing as free will. Doug says, I have no agenda and by no means trolling you. I hope you... Oh, but I didn't... What did you say? Yeah, no, you good. You good. Kelly said, I think having the choice to do something is better than getting something good. Maybe I have free will and something bad happens. I'm happy someone let me not get a jab, even if it kills me. Where this is going to be the main focus of the panel discussion, because this is one of my favorite conversations, and you seem like somebody who really would want to tackle it and engage with it. Yeah, Doug, you are not even getting anywhere close to me being like, oh, Doug needs to shut up, or you are nowhere getting close. You guys, like I said, you guys are on fire tonight. I don't know what it is, but you guys are on fire. Well, if you have it, then sure, but do you have free will?
What kind of hypothetical question are you even asking me?
It seems like a simple one to me. Can you really not answer that question?
Obviously, you're not going to be.
Is the pie made of poison? What's the context here?
I'm not Paul Pelosi here, okay?
But it just shows the absurdity of what you said, which is we all know that it's better, even if she's allergic, it's still better to cook the pie for the widow than it is to kick the baby in the head.
Why? Why is it better? Oh, God. It's better because it creates less suffering or more well-being than kicking a baby. God is not needed for you to do that equation. Or maybe I'm wrong. Tell me where I've slipped God in there and acting like I didn't.
What's the pie made of? Is the pie made of
lamb and mashed potatoes? Good shepherd's pie, you know, like peas and carrots. But we all know that
Marina Abrovovich pie.
Is it a Brover? I don't even know.
Marina Abrovovich, the beer cooking.
Well, that would be a bad pie. But even the fact
there are some universal truths, obviously.
Yes. So good or bad or not
arbitrary. But when it comes to positions of power, that is usually blurred. Obviously, whenever you give power, that power usually is being used against other individuals. So when we have people who have a lot of responsibility, if you give them more power and authority, that's not checked, that's not counted. Especially when it comes to speech, it leads to very tremendously horrible situations throughout recorded human history. And when you give someone power to censor criticism of themselves, we have seen the largest human atrocities because of that. But again, this is a debate that's kind of sidetracking our conversation. You can agree to disagree. I respect your opinions. I think you made some good points as well. And I think this is an idea. Maybe we could even debate afterwards, because I know we still got a crap ton of stories to talk about.
I want to talk about the Barstool stuff, but I'll just reiterate on the because maybe we'll talk in the members only. We'll go nuts with it.
So guys, I really want to have this panel discussion. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow afternoon. I don't know exactly when. I was going to say before a Filthy Casual MMA watch party, but I don't know exactly when. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a separate video specifically for the members only segment, because the members only segment is almost an hour long. So I'm sure you guys are getting a little bit restless. I'm ready to talk to Kelly about free will. I want to make sure we're giving that the attention that it deserves, and I think it really is a good conversation that they have, and one that that we will enjoy. So keep a lookout for tomorrow when I'm going to go live. I don't know when it's going to be. It could be tomorrow. It could be Sunday. So keep a lookout. Make sure you have notifications on. I will let everybody in the Discord know. So make sure you are in Discord so that you never miss anything. But I think at the end of the day, when we look at Republican politics versus Libertarian politics, there's no perfect answer. There's no perfect answer. But the fact is that there's better options than others when it comes to how to operate in a society. We have seen how the force and authoritarian mentality of the left has created all of these terrible situations that none of us like, even the people on the left. So it doesn't seem rational that we should continue that. It seems at least somewhat rational that we should at least check out, hey, what are they doing over there in the Libertarian Party? Maybe that's something I want to see what they're doing. Maybe I'm with it, maybe I'm not. But the fact that so many people have no fucking clue what the Mises Caucus is, who is anybody in the Libertarian Party, it's sad. It's sad. Because if you aren't about the Libertarian Party, then you should know why. The same reason you know why you're not for the Democrats if you're for the Republicans or vice versa. The lack of knowledge is creating the dichotomy, is creating the uniparty that we all hate. So you need to step outside of what you know, step outside of your comfort zone. We got to make a change. We got to make a change. That's all I got for you guys. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button. That is the biggest thing that helps this channel grow. And the more people we have, the better the parties are. You guys were on fire tonight. On fire. I very much appreciate all of you. And very interesting takes, very interesting questions. I loved it. I loved it. Loved it. This is one of my favorite streams that I've done in a long time. The numbers aren't huge, but one of my favorite streams that I've done in a while. We are on the road. We just passed 750 subscribers, guys. We are getting there. We are so close. 250 people. I remember when I had 250 subscribers. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. But I need you. I need your guys' help, man. I need your guys' help. You gotta, you know, the notification system on YouTube is garbage. So I need you. When the show starts, the first thing, say hello to everybody in the chat, and I take the URL, plaster it. Boom, 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 boom. Other YouTube videos on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on wherever. That is what is going to, thank you, Doug. I very much appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, there's a couple of you who are really good with pushing stuff out there and helping the channel grow. And I appreciate it to no end. If everybody, and you know, you guys don't owe me anything. I put this out for free, and this is what I do. So if you just want to sit there and enjoy how beautiful I am and how awesome all of the everything that I say is, that's perfectly fine. But you know, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to do full time. And if I can get to the place where I can stream every day, absolutely, I will stream every day, and we will have parties every day. And I'm not gonna have a party that sucks. Come on. So I mean, until then, I am waiting on my $2,500 computer. So if you would like to help out, you can hit up at or $, Indian Jesus, CashApp, Venmo. The PayPal and Bitcoin are in the description. But like I said, this is all free. If you don't want to do that, or you can't do that, or you can't afford it, that is perfectly fine. The time that you guys spend here, just with me on your screen, is it's so valuable to me. So thank you so much. We are headed over to Discord. Link in the description. We have a $100 contest going on just for engaging, doing Discord stuff. Come over, talk to us, cam up in the voice channel, and you already got points on the board. It is free to join, but it won't always be. You know, everybody has their little community that you got to pay a little something for. I'm in a couple of them, and I like what I see, and I'm glad I pay for them. And I'm glad that I have a template to do exactly that with our own community. And so it's going to grow, and it's going to do its thing. But Republicans versus Libertarians. We all hate the wokesters. We all hate the wokesters. That's not what we're worried about over here. But we need to determine, especially as election season ramps up, like, okay, what are we looking at? What are we paying attention to? What are we projecting? All this kind of stuff. One of the main reasons I continue to listen to Tim Pool is because he has predicted the future in multiple occasions. Not because he has a crystal ball, but because he pays attention to what's going on. He pays attention to the people who matter, and he connects dots that other people don't. So I'm gonna keep trusting him, not solely, you know, I listen to other people as well, but I really think this is a and what do you guys think about you know, going over the Thursday night show of Timcast as a Friday show for me? So I have trouble with figuring out what to do on Fridays. It's just there's not a lot out there. So what did you think of this? Let me know. And oh, one other thing that would really, really, really help the algorithm is after the stream is over, not in the chat, but the actual comments, leave a little comment there. But all that stuff, you guys know how to do it. I can't wait to talk to you over in Discord. And that sounds really God. Yeah, it's legit, man. The view that I have for this, if you guys knew what it was, if I could articulate that, you would literally be throwing money at me. I'm serious, but that's okay. I have to prove it to you, and I'm willing to sit here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and whenever else to do it. And I am going to prove it to you guys. So all I ask is that you continue to come back. You can continue to come back. You continue to push me to make me better, and I'll do the same, and we'll all be better people while having fun. What the fuck else do you need? What the fuck else do you need? So make sure, again, you are, yeah, if you haven't done so, like button, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good stuff. Very much appreciated, but nothing is more appreciated than the time you spent here with me. And if you enjoy it, again, I'm headed right over Discord right now as soon as this is over. And with that, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the party. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.